Welcome, listeners, to the official inaugural episode of Han Took Shots First. I'm one of your hosts, Derrick. This first episode is going to be split into two parts because it's really long. We spent the first hour or so just kind of discussing the history of Star Wars and George Lucas, and then we finally got into the movie. And instead of putting up a 3+ hour episode, I'm splitting it up for you guys. So if you want to hear the full episode, you can join our Patreon for Bad Movies Worst People at patreon.com/worstpeople. But here on the free feed, you're going to get this one, and then the next release will be the second half of the episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's 32 years before the Battle of Yavin, 22 years since George Lucas wrote or directed anything, and the galaxy's only hope is a little shitbird. This is Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, on Han Took Shots First. I'm Derrick.
I'm Jack.
And I'm Whitney.
Against her will.
Kinda.
I'm your super special guest.
Luke, I am your podcast.
So we've been talking about doing a Star Wars podcast, and Whitney's been telling us to do one so she didn't have to listen to us talk about Star Wars.
And guess fucking what?
And guess who our first special guest is?
It's me.
Not against her will. I promise. I'm not just saying that.
He's lying. I am absolutely tied to this chair right now.
Our very first Ahmed guest, Whitney.
I see what you did there. I heard what you did there. We'll be right back. We're going to need a moment. So, yeah, a little bit before we get into the actual episode, do you remember being excited for this at all?
I do.
I 100% do. The poster, the trailer. I didn't go to the theater and pay for a full ticket just to watch the trailer like a lot of people did. I don't know if you know that was a thing.
Nope.
Yeah. I had a little tidbit that I had written down. There was a consumer research company employment consultant firm, called Challenger Gray and Christmas. They estimated that 2.2 million people, this was for the release of the movie, 2.2 million full-time employees missed work to attend this film, resulting in a loss of $293 million in productivity in the United States.
Damn. Fuck you, capitalism.
But yeah, there was another thing, and I don't know where I have it in here, but yeah, there was like a 75% increase in ticket sales, and it was just people going to the theater to see the trailer and then leaving before the movie
And I can't
started.
remember what movies there were, but there were like ones along the lines of like an English Patient type movie that their tickets were just skyrocketing because people would watch this, 20-second, 30-second trailer and then fucking leave. Mass exodus.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving false hope to these other
Yeah,
films.
like, we're doing great, dude.
And like I've heard people on like other podcasts I listen to talking about going to a movie just because they were trying to see a certain trailer, but they stay and they watch the movie.
Yeah, that's where I would be. Like, I would have gone to see, like, if it's like, oh, Harry Potter has a new trailer for Star Wars. Like, cool. I'm going to watch that trailer and that Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Because I paid for it. So my older sister took me to this opening day. She's not a Star Wars fan. Well, I guess she is now. We've talked about it since, but yeah, this is me being that super Star Wars nerd, just so excited for the year 1999 to give me a new Star Wars movie. And my older sister took me. We got tickets. We came back for like the 10 o'clock show, and I left the theater happy.
So I did not go opening day because it was kind of ruined for me by having the extreme nerds in my school.
Mm-hmm.
So I love Star Wars. I grew up watching Star Wars, seen it a million times. It was one of the earliest movies I probably watched. But there was this group of super nerds who would walk around the school for, it had to have been at least a year, if not more. One of them was wearing a placard around his neck that had the number of days until episode 1 came out.
Yeah.
I bet he got all the pussy.
Save some for the rest of us, pal.
And I also just didn't like these dudes in general.
I can see why.
And it was before that. I just didn't like them anyway.
That was
but,
the icing on the hate cake.
yeah, that was just like, I was like, dude, come the fuck on.
Yeah.
Like, I get it.
Even me, probably the biggest Star Wars nerd is like, calm down.
Yeah.
That's too much.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know them that well. So
I say that dressed like Princess Leia as a slave bikini. Hey, calm down, guy. Your fandom's gone too far.
I have a feeling that they probably missed like a week of school while they were waiting in line for tickets the day they went on sale or some shit too. But
yeah,
I see that happening.
And I'm sorry to everybody listening that I sound like shit, but I have some kind of shit in my chest. And we already didn't record
it's
for
an
like
internal Cleveland steamer.
we already didn't record our other show for like 2 weeks because of illness, and I'm like, fuck this. Terrorists can't win.
Yeah, you can't let them win.
Yeah.
Whoever they are. Rewatching this movie, which is probably like my 17th time.
Okay, we
watching
were
it.
juniors in high school, right?
99. I was
May
maybe
of
a
99.
sophomore.
Oh, you're
I was
one
a
under me.
sophomore.
So I was a junior.
Yeah.
My only memory of this is the video game that came out with it.
The pod racing one?
Yes.
I still maintain that's a game that should be remade.
It's one of the best Star Wars games ever made.
Yeah.
I had a neighbor that lived down the street, and we met at a grocery store, and I gave him a ride home, and I was like, "Oh, I live right there." Like we were literally 3 houses down from each
You
other.
just gave a stranger from the grocery store
No,
a
I
ride
saw him
home?
at our school. I was
It
like,
was the
"Hey."
90s, man. Shit was wild.
It was. I was like, "Hey, you're the new kid at Saguaro, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm Chris. I'm from Iowa." I was like, "Funny story."
Nipple of America, guys.
And really awesome friendships happened. I'm still friends with him today. But we would stay and play. It started with Ocarina of Time was the video game we played, and then this came out, and then he's like, "Oh my god, you got to play this pod racing game with me." And so when we watched the movie, I was like, "I know this part."
Yeah, no. Every time I watch this movie, when they're like, "Oh, he's been forced onto the ramp," I'm like, "Yeah, well, that's how you get ahead."
Duh. There's a speed boost on the side of that. No, like 17th, maybe even more time watching this, and I will still never not be excited by a Star Wars opening with that fucking fanfare trumpet and that beautiful coming at you zoom. I will never not be excited by it. It happened again today.
Yeah, it always gets me, even though this is probably only my maybe 5th time seeing this movie.
Which is
'cause
plenty. I'm not saying it should be rewatched
it shouldn't
17
be
times.
17.
I'm gonna say it was my second because I don't remember my first.
Yeah, because I watched it when it was in theaters, and I hated it. I was 13, 14, something
Yeah,
like that. I'm
yeah.
not going to do math right now. And I remember going and being like, what is all this jib-jab about politics? I don't understand any of this, and I don't care. Which confuses me these days because people like defend the prequel trilogy and say like, well, it was made for the younger kids, not the older fans who had already seen the original movies, because these are kids' movies, is what they are.
Which you're not wrong, because they have characters like Jar Jar and the battle droids. But
Yeah.
then to your point, they
What's
are
the politics
wrong.
shit? Yeah, because I didn't understand any of it. I was the target demographic.
Yeah, I didn't pay attention to politics in America, so
Yeah.
this had no real water in my cup.
I may have seen it one other time after the initial release, and then I watched it when I made her rewatch it or watch it right before The Force Awakens came out. Actually, she made me watch it.
I did make you,
I said,
'cause
let's
I
watch
wanted
the
to watch
original trilogy. She said, let's watch them all, and I cried. Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed it a lot more then because I was like, oh, I understand adult things now.
So first off, I'm a Star Wars apologist. I can make anything work in my brain. Like if you tell me why you don't like it, and I can explain why I do, because I am addicted to Star Wars, so I have to make it work. But something happened in the culture that made these movies, all 3 of them, looked at much more fondly. 2 things. 1, the sequel trilogy being a real big turd.
Yeah.
People was like, man, maybe we were unfair about this prequel trilogy. And 2, the Star Wars, Clone Wars cartoon. You had a generation of younger kids watching that Dave Filoni plugs in a lot of holes that you might have questions about.
Okay.
I'm not saying go out and watch it. I'm just saying if you do watch it, you're like, oh, that's a fucking cool thing. Oh, that's how that happened. Oh,
Okay.
that's why. So then once you watch those, you go back as an adult and watch these, you're like, fuck yeah. It's a weird thing that happened where all of a sudden the hate for these got a lot less.
Yeah, I read a couple things online where people were talking about when I was looking for various information, and a lot of it just came down to, yeah, I used to hate this, and then I saw Rise of Skywalker, and now I'm like, well, that's not so bad.
It's rough, man. Rise of
And
Skywalker broke me.
I don't have that much problem with the sequel trilogy until Rise of Skywalker. We'll get there, but
yeah, it gets a little worse for me every. Like I like 7. I didn't like 8 that much, and I loathe 9.
I don't remember them.
Yeah, well, good thing we're gonna have to watch them, whether you're on this or not.
So we're not gonna finish these episodes as we do on Bad Movies Where's People with a recommendation.
I thought the same
Jack will always
thing.
recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't matter which fucking one. I'm gonna recommend it.
So like, do we want to maybe
can rate
say
it.
where it goes in the?
We can rate it 1 through 5 lightsabers,
I'm down for that.
All
and
right,
then we
I
can
do that.
eventually at the end get our big rating, like our rundown.
Okay.
Because I think I can recite my rundown from memory, but I won't get there yet.
Do you want to recite it at the beginning and then see where it ends up at the end?
We can do that. So
Obviously, Whitney will not be on every episode. She's our special guest. She also won't have a rating of all of them because she's
Oh, I'll
seen
still
all
have
of
a
them
rating
once.
because I'll be watching with you.
No, I mean but right now, like a ranking of all the Star Wars movies. Could you give me a ranking of all 11? We do all 11?
yeah,
All 11 Star
Have I
Wars
seen
movies?
all 11?
You've seen them all.
Solo. Have you seen Solo?
I saw
Okay.
Solo.
Yeah, we saw them all the new ones.
Unpopular
We've seen it in
opinion.
theaters.
I really liked it.
I can't wait to talk about it because I have an appreciation for it now, and
It's
I don't
coming up
know if
soon.
I don't know if it's because of the fucking bad sequel trilogy or I judge it harshly, but I have a lot to say about that. I'll save for the
But
episode.
it comes up soon because we're doing this all in chronological order, chronological of in universe. So we go
Okay.
episode 1, 2, 3, and then Solo.
Okay. So I'll be on the 4th episode.
But yeah, I can go through my ranking of the 11 because I have it on Letterboxd. Follow me at Dirka520.
How do you spell that?
DIRKA
D as in-
520.
Daddy.
So for me, the first two are almost interchangeable on this ranking, but I have it ranked the way I do because of my enjoyment. So it goes Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars, The New Hope, and then Rogue One, and then The Last Jedi, and then Return of the Jedi, and then The Force Awakens, and then Solo, and then Episode 3, and then Episode 1, and then Rise of Skywalker, and then Episode 2.
Okay. Okay. Make
What's
sure-
yours?
1, 2, 3, 9, 10, 11. Okay, making sure I got them all. I think, like most Star Wars fans, you're going to start with Empire. It's the most complete, and it's the best out of the original trilogy. And I'll be damned if I'm not going to have original trilogy as my
Is that
top.
episode 4?
Episode 5.
5. Okay.
So I'm episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. Here comes a wild card. Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. I know it has the Ewoks that ruin shit. It also has one of my favorite rogues gallery in Jabba's palace. Followed up by episode 4, which is Star Wars A New Hope. Then we get to Rogue One, because that is fucking gorgeous and that is fucking beautiful. And then we get to episode 3. Not everybody's fucking favorite, but that fight between Anakin and Obi is so amazing and so... we'll wait for the episode to talk about that. Then I'm on episode 7, which is The Force Awakens, because it was supposed to awaken something in the Star Wars movies, and it set up a lot of emotion for me that didn't go through, but it was there. And then I'm going with episode 1, this one, just because there are things that we're going to talk about here that make it a good movie for me. Solo, because it has some of the better casting with a young Lando Calrissian.
Yes.
And it's hard for me to not like a movie with Woody Harrelson in it. And
Agreed.
then episode 8, because there is a fight scene in that movie that is so fucking awesome that even if you don't like the movie, that fight scene in that throne room
Yeah.
is so fucking cool.
Yep.
And then episode 2 is a kind of a pooper, and so is episode 9. So episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, is my lowest rated movie.
So for me, I think, like I said, for me, the first two, which would be Empire and New Hope, are like neck and neck. I just put Empire above it because I think it's A New Hope is a movie. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Unfortunately, Empire, knowing it's the middle of a trilogy, can't be viewed on its own. So that's why they're kind of neck and neck. And also, my neck and neck are the bottom two, which would be
2 and 9.
2 and 9. Because
So we have a similar
Yeah.
bottom. Yeah, and I think it's all subjective. I mean, it's how much enjoyment you had. But Derrick is putting some cinematic thought into it, where 4 was released not being called 4, not being called A New Hope. It was released being called Star Wars. That's it.
That's it.
Because there might not have been anything else. He was banking on this.
I do have a question to refresh my memory on it.
Fresh away.
Number 9, that's the one where we find out who her father is, right?
Yes.
Or grandfather.
Yes,
I
that's the
guess.
one where somehow Palpatine has returned.
That's a written dialogue. Like that is, instead of just giving any reason, there's so many ways in canon and in legends that you can bring somebody fucking back. They're not called somehow. They're called cloning. There's force transference. I mean, there's so many fucking things.
Well, and it was already done, and I'm not. So the idea here is, I've seen all the movies, all the TV shows. I know that stuff. Jack knows all the, not all, but a lot of the extended universe and
Look,
movie
to
canon.
quote this movie, there's always a bigger fish. I might be the biggest Star Wars fan in this room, or like not the biggest Star Wars fan because it's about appreciation. I might have read the most, but there's always a bigger fish.
But I do know that there was a Dark Empire book or series or something.
That's the Timothy Zahn series.
that was
so good.
Where
Wasn't
they
it
talk
pushed
about
out of canon though?
Yes,
all
it's
that old
Legends.
stuff is legends now.
Yeah,
But
Heir to the
you
Empire.
can, a lot of that stuff that's now considered legends, they call it, the old EU, is being brought back in various forms. There was a whole thing about cloning the Emperor in the Dark Empire stuff that could have been used for episode 9. And instead, they were just like,
So Dave Filoni is definitely cherry picking from Legends in a good way. Did you watch Ahsoka?
Yes.
Ray Stevens' character, Balin Skull,
Yeah.
Yes.
is almost like that's his version of. I've read this name, but I haven't really ever said it. But Jariah Syoboth, who's like a dark clone Jedi. That's who he's taking for his Balin Skull. So things like that.
And then obviously
Thrawn.
Thrawn.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, Thrawn, I'm so happy they brought into canon. Like reading those, Thrawn was such a cool villain.
Yeah.
And he's now he exists.
I mean, it was pretty awesome to watch him.
And you had no knowledge of him.
Zero.
So I can't wait to talk to people that haven't done Rebels or any of those cartoons.
Which is me. I've never done any of the Rebels.
Can't wait.
But it was funny when we were watching Ahsoka and they mentioned, the dude they were trying to save, whose name I won't remember right now.
Ezra Bridger?
Ezra, thank you. They mentioned his like Jedi master, and she's like, "Should I know
Kanan
who that
Jarrus?
is?" And I was like, "He's a cartoon character. Don't worry about it."
Voiced by Freddie Prinze Jr.
Oh,
Ah.
all right.
But I was like, he's literally only exists as a cartoon. So no, you don't need to know that. They're doing it for the people who've watched it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually watching it with the bleeps right now because I've already seen it. I want to see it with people that don't have any background and see if it's ruined or if it still stands great for them. So, and we can talk about that with you.
Yeah, and I've heard other people referencing like this new stuff and being like, "Oh, it's just so lost with all the like it's so buried in all this stuff about the Rebels cartoon and the Clone Wars cartoon. And if you don't watch it, then you don't know what's going on." And I'm like, I didn't watch any of it, and I knew exactly what was going on.
Maybe this fan is buried down by like a burden of knowledge.
Yeah, maybe if you know that kind of has something to do with something, so you feel like you need to know about it. They explain everything, I think. But we'll get there in, 2 years.
I mean, I have to watch all those episodes like 2-3 times in a week because the first time I'm watching it with just different eyes. And then I'm like, all right, Easter eggs time. And I just start looking at the background. I'm like, don't talk right there. I'm looking behind you at that statue.
So going to episode 1.
Which is what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Am I under the correct impression, that he is the Messiah? That Anakin is
He's
technically
Yes.
Jesus?
Yes, he's the chosen one. I mean, he's talked about that as the chosen one.
Like the
he
Force
has no
just
father.
made this happen in her.
Yes. So
So she had to have
In the
what is it
books-
called? Midichloride?
midichlorian.
Midochloride.
Midochloride might just be as good.
It sounds more like a real thing.
So do you want to talk about that now or get in?
We'll go through the story, but
Well,
I do.
Okay, bring that back up then.
Okay.
Was that ever fixed in like extended stuff?
Yes.
Where she's like, it's a virgin birth? Or...
It still is a virgin birth, but it's not from the Force.
Okay.
Do you want me
All
to
right.
tell you now?
Yeah. sure.
Yes.
It was Darth Sidious and maybe Darth Plagueis, his master, manipulating the Force to impregnate her. It's kind of non-sexual rape, I guess.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Okay, so that makes the last line of this movie even weirder.
Go watch your career with great interest.
Yes, exactly. So this movie, as we mentioned, came out in 1999. It's 2 hours and 26 minutes long, right? 2 hours and 16 minutes.
Yeah.
I watched it twice yesterday. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Man, you trying to muscle up on my turf?
That
Well,
was
I
because of
watched
me.
it, and then she came home, and she's like, yeah, I'll do it with you guys. I'm going to be home. So I watched it again. I mean, I slept through a solid chunk in the middle, but
That's the part you should sleep at.
I was
let
awake
him.
for the pod race, and I was awake for the duel of the fates.
That's the sandwich, man. You stayed awake for the bread.
This was directed by George Lucas, one of the very few movies he ever directed. Everybody gives him credit for all the Star Wars stuff because he did originate Star Wars. He
Yeah.
wrote and directed the very first movie,
But
but that's it up to this point. Before this, he had done, so his first movie was THX 1138, which I watched to prepare myself for this podcast because I was like, I've never seen it.
I haven't watched it in a long time, but I remember it being dumb and pointless, but kind of cool looking.
I was very enthralled. I
Okay.
thought it was excellent. It's got Robert Duvall, Donald Pleasance, Sid Haig plays a small role in there, but Robert Duvall and Donald Pleasance are the two main characters. Donald Pleasance is fucking amazing in that
Yeah.
movie, by the way. He's great.
I'm
But
gonna
it's
have to
like
rewatch it.
it's basically the 21st century. We live underground. People have designations instead of names. So Robert Duvall plays THX 1138, and there's this woman that he's in love with, but they're not supposed to be in love. And they
Fucking
try to rebel
society.
against society, and it's all basically about him trying to escape. And in the background, it's all about. I think you need to watch the Blu-ray release because I heard that before that it was like people were like, it's just quiet, nothing's happening.
Yeah.
But they redid the sound.
Well, he
for the
hadn't had
later
the
release.
THX sound yet.
Yeah, they redid the sound for the later re-releases, and there's so much talking going on in the background, like radios and stuff that gives you so much information about what's going on. Like they're talking about like the budget for capturing THX 1138 and like how if they go over the budget they have to stop and like all this stuff. It's really fucked up thing, like a very 1984 Logan's Run kind of futuristic thing.
Is it something I would want to watch?
I think so. It was very
Source
it was
material.
It was
Okay.
incredibly visually interesting. I thought
I'll say
it's the
this.
best directed thing he's ever done.
I had heard it, and I've heard multiple interviews with him where he says like, I don't do dialogue. I don't like dialogue. He likes shots. Who doesn't? He likes fancy, good-looking shots. It is Francis Ford Coppola who's the only reason he even wrote anything, forced him to write, wanted him to write. And when he first gave Coppola like the first thing, he's like, oh yeah, you can't write. We got to get you better at this.
Yeah, he does not write dialogue well as these three movies.
And you're not really big on dialogue anyway. You'd
I
rather-
am if it's well written. Dude, I love Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah. But
All he writes is
sci-fi hasn't
dialogue.
always needed dialogue.
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
'cause you could-
especially the original trilogy.
If you can tell your story without dialogue, then you're really good at telling the story.
Yeah.
And that's why
So-
I was like, I watched this and I was like, wow, this director really has promise.
I don't
Too
want to
bad he
shit
never
on
really-
everything, so I'm trying to give a silver lining. It's
Well,
like,
yeah.
yeah, he can't write dialogue, but dude knows a good shot.
Yeah.
And I think all that happened was he lucked into billions of dollars really early and quit doing stuff. And so that's why I think I'm not very impressed with this prequel trilogy is because he hadn't done any work for 22 years.
Yeah.
The last thing he wrote and directed was episode 4.
And despite what he says or anybody says, these weren't thought out already.
No.
He's said later, like, oh, yeah, I had everything planned out since I did episode 4. It's like, no, you didn't. No, you did not.
Some of the trivia I found was saying like certain things like, oh, this character and this idea were already things he thought of that were going to be part of the original script, but that's it.
I know
Not
he's-
this whole story.
I know he's pulled things from his treatment that he ended up later putting in the universe. Like they weren't going to be called Jedi. They were called Bendu, and the light side of the Force was the Asha, and like just all kinds of little stuff like that made its way back into the cartoons or comics or whatever.
Speaking of pulling things from his own stuff, though, there was a line toward the end of THX 1138 where you can overhear like dialogue from people driving on this like expressway thing.
Yeah.
And someone yells, "I think I ran over a Wookiee on the expressway."
Yeah, I want to say it was somebody's name that he had heard and really just loved.
Okay.
But I do know it's from THX.
I overheard that though, and I was like, So that means THX 1138 takes place in the Star Wars universe?
Yeah.
And then he also directed American Graffiti, which is really well known amongst a certain age of men.
Mm-hmm.
It's a car, a group of teenagers spend a final night cruising the strip before they go on to live their lives. It's Dazed and Confused before Dazed and Confused.
Absolutely.
And not as good.
And it's a fairly low budget film that did really fucking well. I don't know if you ever saw those numbers. It was a super high grossing movie just because of how low budget it was. So this is why he got a lot of favor in Hollywood to do other things.
Yeah. And that one had Richard Dreyfuss, Ron Howard, Harrison Ford, and someone from our other show, Bad Movies, Worst People. It featured Bo Hopkins.
Oh, shit. Oh, man.
Riley from Nightmare at Noon.
Oh, shit.
Dang.
Oh,
Yeah,
shit.
George Lucas's love for cars and hot rods will be prevalent in every episode.
Well,
at
I saw an
least
interview
once.
he did with James Cameron on some TV show James Cameron had, where he was saying, like, he never really cared about, like, ships or anything. He's like, the only reason I care about spaceships is because I like cars.
Yep. He got in a really bad accident and almost died. And that was like, well, I'm not going to be a fucking race car driver anymore. But his love never went away. You see it in all this.
And then he did A New Hope, and then nothing else until 1999 when he did this, and then episode 2 and episode 3.
I got a lot to say about New Hope.
So he's only directed 6 things in his entire life, but he's known as, like, a director.
I mean, he's more of a creator. He created Indiana Jones. He
I guess
created Star Wars.
Yeah, and he did co-write Jedi with Lawrence Kasdan, who directed or who wrote number 2.
There's
Or
somewhere
number
out there
5,
he did a treatment for Apocalypse Now. And like Coppola said, he's like, this is not a bad movie. It's just not what we're doing.
Like, look, the Vietnamese, they don't have lasers, George.
Oh, man, here they do.
So George Lucas took that treatment he did for that with the Vietnamese soldiers.
Put it on Endor.
And turned them into the Trade Federation guys in this movie.
Oh, see, I was thinking he turned into the VC or Ewoks.
I was just thinking about the horrible racial stereotypes in this
Okay.
movie. So we'll talk about this movie.
Let's get into this movie. The Pneumonians.
The pneumonia?
The Neomian Mamians.
That's the Trade Federation?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've heard George Lucas himself and people that worked on it defend it like it's not racist. How can it be racist if it exists in space? And I don't think he meant it to be racist, but it is. Like, it's on the nose.
You've got these characters wearing, like, ancient Asian or Chinese, generally kind of looking garb.
That's the vibe that you get when you look at them.
And then they speak with these broken English accents,
Can
which
I do
could
a
be fine if they
pneumonian
were
accent?
aliens.
Is that allowed, or is that just?
I think so, because they did it and they're all fucking British. That's the problem.
It's like it's really hard to explain without sounding super racist. But it's like, oh no, we have to put a blockade upon your planet,
Yeah.
princess.
It's super fucking racist.
It sounds like that. And you know what? If you'd hired James Hong to do it,
Sure.
maybe it wouldn't be racist.
Sure.
But he hired 2 or 3 British dudes to do it. Mm-hmm.
Which-
I think that makes it not okay.
Let me give you an easy fix right here. I am always on the side of aliens not speaking basic.
Correct.
I would rather I want to hear their language with subtitles.
And it was supposed to be that. These guys were supposed to have a language
which
with
is why
subtitles.
the subtle lip flap don't match up.
But they changed it because it's such an important part of the story. They wanted people to be able to understand it who didn't necessarily have to read everything.
This is your 4th Star Wars movie. We'll be okay. We'll figure it out.
yeah, I agree.
I think it comes down to what we were talking about earlier, the kids.
It's like when you see English in Star Wars. It's almost all removed now for Erebash, the written language, because it's so jarring to see English. It's also a little jarring to see these big, very non-human looking creatures speak basic.
Yeah.
Basic is English.
I get it.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
Where we are at, though, is that so the Trade Federation has these giant Lucra Hulks, which are these just awesome mini space stations blockading Naboo because they want to take it over.
Yeah. So it has something to do, and this is what always confused me when I was younger, and I was like, what are you talking about taxes for? This is Star Wars. But, like, so the Senate taxed the trade routes, which gave the Trade Federation more power, I guess, which put them in control control of Naboo.
Think of the Trade Federation as the East India Trading Company. Think about it like from that point of view,
As
where
England.
they go to these these smaller nations and just kind of, fuck them over until they get what they want. But they are paying so much money to politicians that they are getting away with things. Like they speak on it a little bit of this about the bureaucracy of it, because it is what's happening. That they're on this little outer rim. It's not part of the main system of government. So they're not going to do anything when they.
I mean, Amidala does tell the Palpatine later. She's like, I can see now that this republic just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to like the politics. It's just weighed down under its own weight, which Palpatine kind of did on purpose.
Absolutely.
Like
but
he talks
you can
about
see
it.
because I did vaguely, when we got to that part, I did vaguely remember seeing it. And I understood it more this time. It's almost like you have to watch this twice to understand what's actually going on.
It definitely helps because, again, it's George Lucas's weakness. Like he's a good creator, but he's not a good explainer.
Yeah.
So you're filling in your blanks here on this scheme. But it is, yes, you have Sheev Palpatine, who right now is just no more than like a senator.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no background for him in this movie. I just know it. He grew up on Naboo, very rich family. He was kind of evil right away. His dad tried to kill him, couldn't, so then he kills his whole family.
Oh, damn.
And yeah,
All right.
like he had no force training, but he still was able to just obliterate his family with his anger. So Sheev Palpatine is true fucking evil, maybe the most evil in the Star Wars galaxy.
And I remember the first time I saw this movie way back when, being like, wow, they got a guy that kind of looks like the Emperor, not realizing that it was the same actor,
Yeah.
Ian McDiarmid. Is that how you say it?
That's how I've always said it.
Not realizing it was the same actor. And I'm thinking like, how could it be the same guy? That was so long ago, but it really wasn't. It was 14 years because he was only in Return of the Jedi.
Yes. They did add in his face to the hologram
In Empire.
But he's the only person to ever portray the
Yeah, because the
Emperor.
original one in Empire looks like a puppet
baboon.
ghost.
It's
Yeah.
a baboon.
I don't know what that was. But he was in that, which was 83, and then they filmed this in 97, so it's only been 14 years.
So let's speak on this. The casting is amazing in these movies, in my opinion.
I
Outside of Jake Lloyd. Not his fault.
This movie specifically, Jake Lloyd's the problem. The next two,
Who's Jake Lloyd?
Jake Lloyd is Anakin, and I don't think it's his fault. It was a last-minute thing. George Lucas aged him down. He initially was supposed to be older than this, but
Thank you. That was a question I had earlier also.
Yeah. He was supposed to be older.
It was like, he's 8 and she's 14. I mean, come on.
No. I have it written down the exact ages of them.
So did I. I looked it up.
Yeah, she's 14 and
9.
14 and 9, but in real life she's 18 and he's 10. So there's your discrepancy.
Still gross.
well,
It's
she's
still
18
gross.
when the movie came out. She's 16 when they're filming.
Oh, true.
Because she's born in
and
81.
he's 8.
Yeah.
But either way, yes, I don't think it's a good choice to have him this young. It makes it A, hard to give a shit because I can't relate to him. B,
Funny when he speaks in the other languages.
Oh, God.
but worse in English.
His Huttese is so stupid.
So's his English. It's quitting.
doesn't
This is
have
the
good
most
delivery.
This is the most cringy line in this fucking movie for me. It's quitting time. Yippee!
Yeah.
Wow.
That's almost as bad as I hate sand.
Dude, it's Anakin never gets better. But yes, it's not Jake Lloyd's fault, and he got bullied to a terrible degree after this came out.
Did he ever make anything again?
Not that I'm aware
No,
of.
he quit acting because Star Wars fans, as anybody who knows me in person, I've mentioned, nobody hates Star Wars like a Star Wars fan.
That's how you know you're a fan.
And Star Wars fans are also really just not that nice to people. And I don't mean all of us. I mean in general. It's like Jake Lloyd was basically bullied out of acting because kids would make fun of him at school because of his performance, and they would make he'd walk by and they make lightsaber noises at him. And
Ahmed
just
Best
stuff like
became damn near suicidal.
that. Ahmed Best almost killed himself. The only reason he didn't is because of his son.
Who's that?
Jar Jar.
Jar Jar, which everybody
Oh my
sitting
God.
here hates Jar Jar,
Yes.
right? You don't get online and fucking bully this guy and give him this hate. Like, he's doing a job.
He got paid to do this.
Yeah, he is not Jar Jar. He is an actor.
The person to blame really is George Lucas, who heard this and said yes, and wrote these lines and thought, yes, that's going to be good.
Yeah.
You know what sounds good here? Semi-racist fucking Jamaican character.
Oh my God. I had so many issues with that.
Misa Nobada.
Also played by a white guy.
Yeah.
You might wanna-
I had a lot of issues. Like, I was like, who thought of these characters and was like, yes, that's a great idea.
I think it's subconscious. I don't think George was being racist on purpose. I think he's just like, I need like an islandy people, like kind of underwater. Maybe we can have them sound like this. It's a new dialect I just made up.
They live underwater, so they must be Jamaican.
I'll tell you what, Jamaican me laugh with that performance. The casting I'm talking about, though, is Liam Neeson's
Yes.
and Ewan McGregor. This is, I will always hold this movie in high regard because Qui-Gon Jinn is a character that is so fucking awesome and doesn't get the respect he deserves.
No.
Yeah, I think he's good. He's the early version of what we see throughout this thing a lot, which is just, look, I know there's these rules, but I'm really not going to follow them.
Because he listens to the Force, not the Council.
But it gets passed down. It gets passed down from him to Obi-Wan, from Obi-Wan to Luke.
Yeah, because this iteration of the Jedi we have is castrated, it's neutered, it's awful. They're shills. They're nothing more than a Republic police force.
And that's what I was telling Whitney when we were watching it, because they talk, and I guess we're just kind of jump all over the place. That's fine.
You've seen this movie, right?
Yeah,
right?
Most people have seen this. If you haven't, go watch it first. But they talk at the end about how, or he talks about the prophecy, the one who's going to bring balance to the Force, and it's like, okay, but this guy ends up being Darth Vader, and I'm like, well, he's kind of bringing balance to the Force, because right now it's the quote unquote good guys who are just as bogged down in bureaucracy as the Senate.
So there's
and then of course he swings it hard the other way, and then you have Luke who comes back to kind of balance things out and leave. It's supposed to kind of leave.
So
things
there's
in the
a bunch
middle.
written about it that you don't have to read, but like the translation of the prophecy is wrong. Balance in the Force means the Force is all good and it's balanced instead of having any evil, right?
Okay.
I
The
don't
chosen
like that.
one is and always will be Anakin. It is not Luke Skywalker. Anakin is the one that destroys the Emperor. It is because of Luke's love for him, but he is the one. George Lucas's mouth to your ears. This is Anakin's story.
If
He
I said
is
it,
the
it's true,
chosen one.
motherfucker.
He wrote it down on a piece of paper. What do you want?
Okay, I guess that brings a little light to things. I was, along with my husband, I was along the lines with it's a yin and yang. Like
Yes.
you can't appreciate good without bad, and
That
vice
is
versa.
balance.
Yes.
Unlike this prophecy, but just think about it from being this religious cult, I guess we'll call the Jedi.
It is.
Because they do indoctrinate babies at a young age.
Yeah,
Rip
if
you
eight's
right out of
too
your
old,
parents.
then
Yeah.
Is it 2? So they have no emotional attachment
It's
to anything?
exactly right.
That's what I told her. Yeah,
Okay.
because
That's
she's like,
exactly
how is
correct.
he too young? And I was like, because he's already formed
I
attachment.
was like, because
Which,
Luke
okay.
was like 16, right?
So
yeah,
Qui-Gon,
he's way too old. Yeah.
So Qui-Gon actually is from an older, like kind of a different thought where you can get to know people and you can love people. It's kind of a lesson in life. You guys are a married couple in love. You know one of you is going to die before the other one.
he says if I die first, he's killing himself. So.
See, that's Sith-like. A
Exactly.
Jedi would be like, man, I'm really appreciative of all the time I got to spend with my beautiful wife. Now I need to keep living my life because that's what the
me.
Force wants.
So you're Sith and
She's
I'm
going to
Jedi.
go out there and
I see
just
it.
be such a hoe when you're dead.
When I'm dead. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry, when you're in bed, I said. No,
Wow.
but so Qui-Gon is like
Okay,
look what saves the fucking galaxy is love.
Yeah.
A father's love for his son's love for his father.
Well, and-
not this antiquated Jedi cut off nihilist almost.
Well, and his thing also kind of opens it up to being a little bit more, you can bring in people from all over the galaxy, because for him, he says at one point, if you guys lived in the Republic, we would have discovered Anakin at a younger age.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the same thing applies to Luke when he gets found at, he's like 16 or 18 or however old he is. Anybody who doesn't live in the Republic, in the central systems, who basically are like the rich people,
yeah.
doesn't get to be discovered. So if you live in the outer rim or in the outer territories, you don't get to be a Jedi.
It would be like a really smart person from the 1800s living out in Arizona. Like you would never get found because all of civilization is back on the East Coast, all
Exactly.
the schools and colleges. So that's kind of how I'd think about that.
Exactly. But
They threw all the rules out for Luke because he was the only one left.
Yeah.
So we thought. Now
Well,
we've got
and-
books, comics, and cartoons where there's like probably 40 different Jedi that survived Order 66 when it used to just be one.
Yeah, but Obi-Wan only knew about that one.
Yeah, that's true.
Because he's been on that planet.
Random question, which probably I shouldn't ask right now.
No, bring up all the questions.
It has nothing to do with this movie.
Oh, don't bring up all those questions.
It's about Leia.
Oh, bring up that question.
She is Jedi. Yes.
Yeah, she's Force sensitive. She has the Force like her father.
Yeah, you have to be trained to be a Jedi, but you can be Force sensitive.
So
She
in
just
the
has
early-
that good bloodline too. She's a
Yeah.
Skywalker. Like
So in episodes 4, 5, 6, there were 0 female Jedi.
yes, and 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
Yes, Leia apparently had this latent Force ability, but it didn't. Like she never trained it at the time.
But
We've later gotten her trained up a little bit.
Maybe that's why she
Ahsoka?
found herself so
Ahsoka.
attracted to
Ahsoka?
her brother. She was like, I feel some kind of pull from this guy.
Or
But she didn't
is
know
it that
was her
George
brother.
Lucas
Yeah.
didn't know that they were going to be brother
No,
and
he
sister?
knew
Could be-
everything from
all
before
right,
he started.
He had it all written down.
So in Ahsoka, where does that take place now?
That is like 20 years after
Anakin.
episode 6.
Well, and I have the whole timeline written down right here.
Well, no, I
Because
think it
there's
starts
a
9
shit
years.
ton of female
Ahsoka
Jedi.
is about 11 after the Battle of Yavin.
Okay.
So, yeah, it would be about 7 after episode 6.
Yeah, I want
About
to say
7
it's like
years.
9. I could be wrong. Anyway, it has to do with more that we didn't do
It
a
was
lot
the
of female
70s.
characters in the 70s.
Well, the timeline stuff I found was saying Ahsoka's about 11 years after the Battle of Yavin because
Oh, I'm
it takes
thinking of-
place over.
I'm thinking of Mando season 1.
Yeah, season 1 and 2 are about 9.
Yeah. Okay.
Ahsoka's about 11, which is where Mando 3 is.
Because Ahsoka was Anakin's
Padawan.
Padawan. I almost said Padme.
Yeah.
It's not Anakin's Padme.
Ahsoka was trained by Anakin Skywalker,
Yes.
and that's Clone Wars stuff. And
Yeah.
man, when they first created her, she was annoying. It was gonna be a huge bomb, but they changed her up, and she is a beloved character.
Well, it also doesn't hurt that it's,
But even when it was in the Clone Wars and she was voiced by like Ashley Eckhart, I think like it still was a beloved.
She's
character.
like 12.
Yeah.
Some
Okay.
shit in the cartoon at the beginning, right? So moving on.
One of the reasons it was so easy for this trade federation to set this up, by the way, it's been at least 1,000 years since the last war. Like
Okay.
the Republic has all these sanctions where you can't have battleship cruisers. Like they were allowed to have these Lucre Hulks because they were transport, they were all kinds of stuff, and then all they did was fucking weaponize them. And
Yeah,
you gotta
this is the droid control ship.
yeah.
Right? Like,
So if
yeah.
they built all these droids in secret, on Genosha, way out of Rim, and then they had the ships already existed, and then you just fucking mount them up with guns and ammo, and you got a huge navy now. A
Yeah.
huge navy.
It's been 1,000
that you don't
years.
have to feed.
It's been 1,000 years since there was a war. When the next 67 years are just war.
You are going to have a lot of war. You're going to have all the war coming up soon.
We do see Darth Sidious as a hologram. This is also how you saw him the first time in the original trilogy.
Uh-huh. I love what they're doing to his voice because it's Ian McDermott speaking, but they do that modulation where like it's now he's starting to sound like his actual self.
And there is, so I remember being really upset watching this movie about all the really bad CG, but there's a lot of miniature work still and puppet work. I think it goes away as we go through the series, but in this one at least, like this, when this, there's like the ship blowing up at the beginning here. I can't remember what ship it was. Somebody gets shot.
Well,
and
they
it's,
had
it's
the
miniatures.
Okay.
It's a miniature. You can see it's a miniature explosion.
Oh
It looks
yes,
like,
it's the Republic ship that drops off Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan gets blown up in the hangar.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
that's
it.
an old school early trilogy shot
Yeah.
of blowing up a miniature. It's
Yeah.
cool as shit.
That's what it was. It was in the hangar. Yeah.
I will say the CG looks better in 99 than I thought it would. Like
Yeah.
going back to it.
Yeah.
There's a couple really shit ones, but then there's some good ones like
I don't know if part of the problem is we were watching it in 4K.
uh-huh.
So like sometimes bad CG looks worse when you're watching it in a really high definition.
The battle between the Gungans and the droids, man, those hover tanks are screensavers.
Dude, that shit looks like an episode of Clone Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. But 99,
Yeah.
George Lucas is pushing a technology that may not have been there yet.
This was nominated for visual effects and sound.
Oh my God, this sound.
Yeah.
I could watch this with no fucking image and just still have a good time and listen to it.
Yeah, I can.
Star Wars sound design is always amazing to me.
Also, though, I noticed in this scene when they're landing before the Republic ship gets blown up and stuff, there's these droids, these robots that are like almost like spider walking things,
Yeah,
like
I think
real
it's a
tall
vulture droid.
things. Why aren't those in the battle later? Those look like they could kill some shit.
Those are what take off. They're walking on four. It looks like a bird with like walking the tip of
Yeah.
its wings. Yeah, those wings turn forward, and it's 2 points above 2 points, and that's the droid. They are the ships.
So kind of like the ships from Battlestar Galactica that are the robots.
Because if they build spaceships,
Cylons.
they got to have pilots, or you can make a droid that
turns
ship,
into a ship,
kind of thing. I believe it's the Vulture.
I just saw them
droids.
walking around, and then I never saw them walking around again, and I was like, well, those seems like they could be useful.
We'll get better views of them, I think, in episode 2. No. 3's the one that starts with the fight on Grievous's ship.
I was like, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't happen in this one, like naming Anakin's mom or naming Samuel L. Jackson.
Shmi? Yeah, we don't know Mace Windu.
My favorite line of the beginning of this, though, is when they're trying to figure out what to do. Like, the Jedi are on the ship, and they're like, basically, the Jedi who are Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn, they realize that they're getting fucked with, so they end up breaking out. And these 2 Trade Federation guys are there, and they're like, put down the blast doors, bring in the droidicas. And then he's like, we will not survive this.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, no, probably not, buddy.
It might take you the rest of the movie, but you will not.
Like, the one guy is just like, nah.
Correct.
Yeah, see, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
The one guy's like, nah, we got droidicas, we got shields, we'll be good. The other guy's like, yeah, we're going to fucking die, dude.
This is where I think we start to see what George always wanted from his Jedi, the speed run.
Yeah, this is the first time I noticed that, and it made me want to throw up.
It didn't really look good, but I think he's trying to show, like, look, because, go back and watch 4, 5, and 6, and they're still amazing. They're all fucking beautiful, but you see the limitations of movement to the actor. And in this, we are seeing a lot more. We'll get to the lightsaber duel eventually, but we're seeing some better movements. This didn't look good.
No,
but I'm glad we're seeing some power.
When I saw them like zip off, and I had never ever noticed that any of the times I've watched this, the first thing I thought was that fucking Whitney just made me watch all the Twilight movies.
You bought it for me. So.
I was like, this Twilight shit. Why are they Twilighting around?
Yeah.
Why are they zip zapping?
Yeah.
I just can't. And I'm glad it's the only time I can ever think of any of them doing that.
You can always tell a Jedi because they sparkle in the sun.
I mean, we get like the stuff like where they're pulling themselves up really easily and stuff. That's cool.
You see a big leap coming up later.
Yes.
Yes. It's a thing that all the expanded universe stuff will always be able to do it better because you're writing it instead of filming it. So they start giving these Jedi different powers that you never saw, and we're kind of seeing some right here. It just didn't look good.
Yeah, I was not. I don't know. I wasn't impressed with the zip zap, but I'm glad we don't see it again. At least not that I remember. But again, this is my first time ever noticing this.
You don't see it like this
because they zip away and then they're suddenly on the other side of the thing. Which, you know what? If they just jumped off the side of the screen and then suddenly appeared, I'd be like, oh, because they're supposed to be fast. I didn't need the bad flash animation.
It's George pushing technology. Doesn't always work.
Obi-Wan does have a little snarky line here.
Well, like negotiations were short.
Exactly. You were right about one thing, Master. I can't do the Obi-Wan.
The Ewan McGregor one.
Yeah. I can do the Liam Neeson. It's like
okay, so you be Liam and you be Obi.
I'm an Irishman.
I've got a particular set of lightsabers.
I've got a particular set of potatoes.
I've got the best bahookies in the whole galaxy. Oh, is that right?
We could talk about Liam Neeson talking about wanting to beat up black guys.
Yeah.
That's a thing that happens. He says some racist things in this movie too, so.
Yeah, but they're actual races, not a race of humans. It's a race of aliens.
You ever hear about that?
No.
When Liam Neeson was doing an interview and just unprompted told a story about how he went out looking for black guys to beat up. It was because a friend of his had been raped by a black man and he was young and angry. And so his response was, I'm going to go beat up a black guy. Yeah. He never did it. But he told this story unprompted.
Yeah, that's something you keep that deep down, buddy.
Yeah, you don't tell that story. Although it did lead to a really funny cameo on Atlanta. The Donald Glover show.
Yeah. Oh, never seen it.
Oh, Atlanta's a great show, but Liam Neeson plays himself in that, and he's talking to Paperboy, who's like the main character, and he basically goes into that, and he's like, he says something, he's kind of apologizing for it, and the character Paperboy is like, well, I'm glad you don't dislike black people anymore. He's like, oh no, I don't really like you guys. That's because you tried to ruin my career.
Nothing to do with race.
Okay, so flashing away.
Yes, so we meet Queen Amidala, Natalie Portman.
We get her before we get Jar Jar. Luckily,
yes. Yeah. I think because it's a video screen. She's talking to the Trade Federation people. She's doing when
played
she plays
by Keira Knightley.
Yes.
Well, this is
no, this one.
Yeah, this one is Natalie Portman. And I could very easily tell the difference. Maybe again because it's 4K. I remember back then not being like, oh wow.
They also modulate her voice to make her sound more like Keira Knightley when she's in costume, not when she's
the queen.
Yes.
She does this like old Hollywood
Deadpan.
Mid-Atlantic kind of like
with the modulation on it.
Yeah, with it, and then they make it deeper. Yeah. But she does. It is like an old Hollywood, like
Your
a Catherine
occupation is
Hepburn
over,
kind of.
Viceroy.
Yeah,
I think they had to do that so they could match a voice. So when the other one, when they're out of character for Queen, they have their own actual.
Well, and I'll tell you what. Here's the tricky thing. You don't need it. You don't need a secret reveal in this movie like that's already got a lot of things going on. The secret reveal is building up that it's going to be A, Palpatine becomes Emperor, and B, Anakin becomes Vader. We don't need this Amidala subplot. In my mind, it didn't pay off.
I think the biggest thing for it is that it gives an opportunity for Natalie Portman to get to know
Everybody.
Anakin and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn at a personal level as Padme versus them addressing her as royalty and as the queen when she's wearing all this fucking 80s fucking dance group
which
clothing
everything
that she
you
wears.
said is correct and it's true, but we the audience don't need to be fooled.
But
you went hard on trying to fool us, and like you just said, you saw it right away.
Yeah,
like, especially in 4K. You know?
There is that one line where Qui-Gon's like, "Look, the queen trusts me to make the right decisions," and she's like,
"You assume too
much."
Yeah. She says that multiple times.
Yeah.
So this is where we meet Jar Jar. They're clearing these droid tanks are like clearing the forest basically, and all the animals whose instincts are to run and survive are running and surviving. Jar Jar is dancing around like a fucking clown.
And Qui-Gon gets in the way of Darwinism, man. This guy should not be alive.
Yeah.
He's too dumb to exist. You can see it in Liam Neeson's face. Like, he's got some disdain for it looks like disdain for Jar Jar. It's disdain for working on a green screen.
Okay.
Or with a character. Like, he does not have a pleasant face when anytime Jar Jar and him are sharing a scene.
I will say that, and this is a comment I made last night, was they're doing a good job looking at the character.
He had
it's just a terribly placed.
He had a headpiece.
Okay,
yeah,
that's what you
Best
told
was
me.
there. Yeah, wearing a tennis ball on his head.
Yeah, and I don't want to just shit on Jar Jar because it's too easy. I don't think there's very many people that enjoy him. But it's, again, George Lucas, you wrote a bad character.
It's
and
a
you
bad
wrote a bad
character.
language.
It's a bad. They're not funny jokes.
Yeah.
It's just too much like
Whoopsies.
Whoopsie daisy. Look at me. Like,
and I'll tell you what.
And
works
honestly,
for me,
most of the time, nobody's reacting to his antics. It's like they just added it in later.
the thing that works for me in a comic relief point of view or area is the droids themselves, the battle droids. I find them kind of funny. You know, like they work for me when it's like, you're going where? Coruscant does not compute. Oh, wait, you're under arrest. Like, it's a little sticky, and I like that more than I like Jar Jar. So you don't need him when you already have them.
Yeah, they've got some kind of funny little, like, moments versus just everything he does just isn't.
And even if you don't find them funny, at least it's not the most irritating thing. It's you're like, all right, I can get past that. But when you compile it with Jar Jar, now it's like, God, this movie is just fucking not for me.
There is a moment right after he saves him, right after Qui-Gon saves Jar Jar, where he says, he's like, "You almost got us killed. Are you brainless?" And he says, "I spake." Every time I watch this movie, because I don't watch it often, at first I hear it and it sounds to me like he's saying, "I expect." Like, yes, I am brainless.
No, he's saying, I spoke, therefore
like,
I am.
Yes, exactly, because then Qui-Gon follows it up with, just because you speak doesn't mean you're intelligent.
Yeah.
But he first says, "I spec." I'm like, yeah, I expect too. You fucking
Are you
idiot.
brainless? I expect so.
I didn't like the language that they made for him. I didn't like how it did not come across well.
You saw no like at the jib jab?
Oh, fuck you.
I'll tell you what I do like, though. The Gungan underground city. Or
Yes.
Underwater city.
Yeah.
I like this. It's very Star Wars to me. And it appeals to me the fact that you have multiple races on one planet. You know, you got the humans above that probably came from...
Because that's not how it's worked on any other planet so far.
And they do make a point at one point where she's like, I know we'll get there, and I'm speaking ahead. I'm sorry. I'll stop.
We're all
go ahead.
over the place.
Okay.
It's fine.
Where she's like, I know we don't get along, but we are symbiotic or symbiont.
Yeah.
We work perfectly together.
And Obi-Wan says it at one point to
Anakin.
To Anakin?
About
no.
the
Boss
about the
Nass.
Force.
No, someone tells Boss Nass.
No,
like,
she
you
tells
guys-
that's the scene
okay.
she's talking about. Obi-Wan says it like pretty much right away when they find out there's two species. Oh, he says it to Boss Nass at this part in the underground Gungan underwater city. He's like, we don't care about the people up there. And he's like, how could you not care? You guys are symbiotic. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it comes back in with her. So
Yeah, and how he's like when he's talking to Obi and he's like they don't like us, they think they're better than us,
Yeah.
because they're up there, and how that turns around and she's like, we never thought that, and he's just happy
Yeah,
as
he's
can be
really
to
happy about it at the end. He's like, you don't think you're better than us? Neat.
Nice.
We're best friends then.
We never even asked. We just assumed.
yeah. Well, when the Queen says it,
Yeah.
and she lowered her guard by showing her real
Yeah,
colors.
everybody
I will
dropped
say
down.
Jar Jar, like, they don't get credit in this movie, really, for Jar Jar Binks being the first fully realized, all CG main character of a film ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, the credit usually goes to Andy Serkis in Lord of the Rings, but
Well,
Jar
that
Jar
looks
was
much
first.
better.
It looks better, and it is better. And even though Smeagol is annoying, it's not this kind of annoying.
Yeah.
I would take Smeagol's talk over Jar Jar talk.
Every day of the week.
Well, and
dude.
the problem with the Jar Jar talk, like we kind of talked about earlier with like the race stuff, is a lot of people perceived it as like making fun of like what would you call like the back when like the blackface kind of speak that people did when they were doing performances
Like a
of
minstrel?
black people, like minstrel. There you go. Like that's what people saw. There's a lot of this.
I mean, yeah, it's I don't like, again, I'm not trying to defend him. I just don't think he did it on purpose. But
No.
it is
It is
what it is.
He just happens to be a middle-aged white dude who's unaware of his own.
Yeah. Oh, did you notice that Boss Nass must be weak-willed? Because this Jedi mind trick works flawlessly.
Oh, yeah.
I thought I was gonna be a little closer to Jabba, like, hey, come on, guy. Doesn't
Yeah.
work on us.
Yeah.
But it definitely is
Or
like, I'll
Watto.
send you on your fucking way.
You waving your hand around like that.
You think
You think you're a Jedi?
But they send him to the core of the Earth, which I think is a cool shot.
Yeah.
I like this ship plenty.
The different creatures, like the one that's basically Godzilla,
Uh-huh.
like a snake Godzilla.
Okay, but that guy kind of looked like the Mandalorian creature guy with
The Mythosaur.
Mythosaur.
Yeah.
No horns.
No horns on this guy though. He looked
Yeah.
more like a. It was
No,
like
the
a.
second one.
And the Mythosaur is only going to be on Mandalore.
You know what this
Oh,
guy,
okay.
this big one, looks like to me? SpongeBob SquarePants, the generic,
where
the
are we
generic
going
like
here?
world filling people who are like the eel kind of people.
Uh-huh.
They're
Oh.
always there. He looks like one of those.
Gotcha. I see what you're saying. I didn't know where that was going. SpongeBob and Star Wars.
There's a crossover.
Never can tell.
But yeah, he Jedi mind tricks Boss Nass, and then they get their ship to go through the planet core, and there's always a bigger fish.
Yep. Which is important. Like, I mean, this is talking about right here. It's talking about the immediate moment. It's also talking about Darth Maul, Darth Sidious. Like,
Yeah,
there's always
exactly.
a bigger fish.
It's a not so great metaphor of like, well, we know we have to fight this guy, but there's always a bigger one. Which isn't true if you listen to if you listen to them saying there's only ever two Sith. There's not always a bigger fish.
The two Sith thing, though, is something
That's
from
long
Darth
abandoned,
Bane.
right? Like, I mean, there's been more than
Darth-
two.
Darth Sidious was trying to implement the rule of one, which is it came from somebody else, but he's done it better. He wants to be the only Sith. He never fully realized the training for everybody else. He wanted to keep Vader's a lapdog, not a true apprentice. Because the Sith way, the rule of two is, I train you until you're strong enough to kill me. And then you rule until you have somebody come kill you. Sidious is like, fuck no, dude. I'm going to be the only one. I'm going to cheat death. You know, which he does. He's, I'm going to outlive this, that, the other. I mean, he set up a way to have all these people work for him thinking they were part of the two, but they never were. He wanted the
Okay.
rule of one,
Oh,
meaning one person to rule.
yeah.
One Sith to rule them all.
One Sith to rule them all.
But yeah, as they're going through, there's like, it just happens to be the perfect timing of like, this fish is going to eat them, bigger fish eats that, and then it happens again immediately.
Yeah, like, hey, remember this? Yeah, it just happened like 10 seconds ago. Well, throwback.
And it's the same giant fish. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's trying to save them or if he's just really wants to eat them. So
No, he sees him as bait. He's like, look at this beautiful lure going through the water. I'm just going to follow it and clean up, dude.
That's fair.
He's a guy at the end of the night at the bar waiting to take some drunk person home. I'm pitching cleanup.
When the Jedis are sneaking around the ship here, I did notice at one point some droids walking around in the background that look like the lamp from Pixar.
I definitely saw this too. Yeah, even like tucked its head in a little bit.
Yeah, I was like, oh look, Pixar, it's back there.
Yeah. So they bust out Amidala and a couple people, Captain Panaka, and they half the pilots go some other direction, like somewhere else. Just get on the ship. You can't help. I guess you get some pocket resistance here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they bolt on the shiniest, chromiest ship in the fucking galaxy, dude.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, this ship was what bothered me when I first saw this. I was like, this is supposed to be 30 years before. This is the shiniest thing I've ever seen
But
in
it's
my life.
pre-rebellion, I mean, or pre-Civil War.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, there hasn't been a war in 1,000 years, and this is a rich leisure planet.
And I will say, though, I always thought this would be a terrible way to hide, but when they showed the shots of this in space, it's real hard to see.
Yeah.
Like, it's reflecting all the stars back, so it's like you can't see it.
It might be easy to spot on sand,
Yeah.
but not in space.
That's why he hates sand.
Uh-huh. Gets everywhere.
Who hates sand?
Anakin.
It's from the second one.
Oh.
Third one.
That's the cringy lines. I hate sand.
There's a whole series of memes I found when I was out looking on stuff on the internet of different people throwing sand in Anakin's face.
I saw one.
Secret
It's
sand.
the Jedi from the little youngling from Episode 3 that he ends up killing. He's like pocket sand.
Yeah, pocket sand. That's what it was. So yeah, they end up capturing the Queen, or Queen Amidala,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah,
Because this invasion takes no time at all. They weren't prepared for this.
because it's a peaceful time in general. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's no planetary defenses. Like you need a shield or some sort of giant like battery. You need guns.
Yeah.
You know, they don't really have much of a navy. They've got a fleet of M1 fighters. That's about it.
I mean, that's all it takes, isn't it? At the end
end of
right?
the day, yeah. But they landed on this planet and the occupation was over. Like it was done.
So they're trying to get her to force her to sign the treaty. This one is Keira Knightley.
Yeah.
This queen is Keira Knightley. Usually you can also tell because you can see Natalie Portman standing there.
That's
Yeah.
the easiest
Because
one.
when they
She's
have
one of the
when they have
handmaidens.
Keira Knightley as Amidala, you can see Natalie Portman as Padme.
And they always
when
have
they
Kira's face.
Yeah, exactly. When they have
covered.
Natalie Portman as the queen, Keira Knightley's face is covered like all the other girls.
Mm-hmm.
They all have like their hoods, but only Padme keeps that shit back. So
You pay for that Natalie Portman. You got to see it.
I did read a thing. I don't know how true it is, but apparently Keira Knightley's own mom or stepmom came to set, and they had them both made up, and she couldn't tell who was who.
Oh wow.
Like she was talking to Natalie Portman.
Keira Knightley has long since said she does not remember who she even played. Like it was probably very jumbled shooting. She's like, I don't know who I was. What I thought I was the queen.
Mostly it's when she's in the black like outfit with like the feathers
Yeah.
and shit. There's a point later on where it's a different outfit, but most of the time it's just that one.
That peacock on top.
Yeah. I wrote down wahoo hoo hoo. Wahoo hoo hoo. I don't remember.
So Mario made a really big triple jump or something. What?
Yeah, that happens at some point. The Jedi are coming in to rescue her, and someone goes wahoo.
I guarantee you, it's Jar Jar.
Oh, I think it is.
But she doesn't want to leave. She wants to stay with her people. But they're like, no, you need to go to the Senate to get help because we can't fucking do anything about it.
How much do you love or hate the fact that this is a democratic planet with an elected queen? Like that's such a weird thing. There's no bloodline inheritance. Like she is queen, but it is a democracy that elects them.
I mean, isn't that kind of like England?
No, that's bloodline.
But they have a queen that doesn't do anything. They elect their leaders.
The queen in England is just a figurehead. I mean,
Yeah.
they have all kinds of parliament and stuff.
They elect their leaders.
It's just
and
a
stuff.
crazy little thing that it's a democratic queen.
Well,
okay. I
instead
didn't-
of saying president, they're saying queen.
That's exactly what it is
Okay.
because it's president of a planet. So I guess queen is a little bit more than that.
I guess I didn't catch that she was like the elected queen.
They
I was-
speak
because
about
she's-
it in the later
because she's like
ones.
14. I just assumed that it was a inherited.
Yeah,
title.
what a fucking system.
Yeah.
Like who'd you vote for? That new 14-year-old. She's
Yeah,
really gonna
exactly.
clean this planet
Because
up.
it's like when they had in like one of the dynasties in China, or I think it was China, maybe it was Japan, where they had an 8-year-old that had to take over at
Yeah.
some point, like because he was the next in line.
And that's bloodline. This is a 14-year-old voted in fucking
because she's impressionable.
This 14-year-old.
I'm gonna say
this 14-year-old
Sure, that
kid-
makes sense.
This 14-year-old saying stuff that makes a lot more sense than all these old white dudes. I don't know, man.
But Palpatine,
Yeah.
he is grooming her.
Well, he
He's
does
like,
mention at some
absolutely.
point that
I
she will
think
be easy to control. He tells the Trade Federation guys that she'll be easy to control because she's young.
So he 100% got her.
So
in
he probably
office.
got her elected.
Okay, that makes sense.
Him and his master.
Exactly.
But yeah, she wants to stay there. They're like, no, we have to go see the Senate. And they mention Coruscant for the first time in any Star Wars movie.
Kind of.
What is Coruscant?
It wasn't. It's never been in. It wasn't in the original trilogy. It may be in like
The
a
special edition
that
it
doesn't
was.
count.
So that's what I was going to say. This is Coruscant is the city planet.
City planet they end up on later, where the Jedi are and the Senate is. It's where all of pretty much Andor. well,
Okay,
half
yeah.
of Andor takes
It is
place.
the
but,
capital of the galaxy, essentially.
It's
Yeah,
from the EU. though.
So he is correct. It's the first time we see it, unless you saw the special edition in '97 at the very end of Return of the Jedi when it's showing like the celebration. You see that.
yeah, they show it, but
snippet
this is
of-
the first time it's named.
Yes.
They show it in that in
Yes.
the special edition Jedi when they take out the Yub Nub song and replace it with some other worse song.
The Yub Nub is bad, but it's better.
Fun fact about Yub Nub. I mean, we'll get there.
You gonna have a jizz music?
No, it was co-written by the lead singer of Toto, who's John Williams' son.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
Can I say we are now like about 20 minutes into the movie?
Yeah.
And
And we're about an hour into the podcast. It's fine.
no, not that. Like we're 20 minutes into this movie and we still have yet to go to Tatooine.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, don't worry. The rest of Star Wars takes place on Tatooine.
We've also not seen a lightsaber duel yet. I know exactly when it is.
Yeah.
But it just like
Not a duel. We do see lightsaber work, but
We
not
see
a
some
duel.
lightsaber action.
Oh, you know, a fun
but
thing
we
I
have not
noticed-
seen lightsabers cross.
Fun thing I noticed watching this twice in a row, all the lightsaber activations happen on screen, which does not happen in the original trilogy. You see it once in a while, but you can see the jump because the way they had to like cut to do the edit. Mostly they happen off screen in the original trilogy.
Did you know that Ewan McGregor kept getting scolded on set because he made the noises?
I read that. Yeah, they're like, we're gonna add that in later. He's like, I can't help it.
I would have trouble.
He also said that what he remembers the most about filming this movie was walking into rooms and looking up. So we meet R2.
R2 fucking D2.
Yes, on the royal ship, which I'm sure has
Yes.
a name.
J7.
And he's the only one that can fix this ship.
Yeah, dude, these guys all get blasted off, and he's just
We're
like,
losing droids.
I thought it was cool. Well, in '99, watching this, seeing like we now know R2 and all the other astromech's purpose.
Yes.
Like this is perfect.
Yeah.
You know, they get launched up to the top of the ship. They got their little grav boot kind of things on, and they work on stuff.
Yeah, they're repair droids, which I guess makes sense because all we saw in the past was them in the X-wings. Mm-hmm.
What do you
And
think,
other ships
Navigator?
too, I think. But they also do repair stuff though, because
Yeah.
R2 was always using his little dick arm thing to like. Look, he fucks stuff with it.
Oh, by the way, Kenny Baker back in the R2.
Yeah, Kenny Baker, one of the only people coming back from the original trilogy. It was Kenny Baker,
Anthony Daniels.
Ian McDiarmid, and
Warwick was in the Ewoks.
Frank Oz.
Frank Oz. Yes,
and
thank
Warwick
you.
Davis.
Warwick Davis, but not as the same character.
No.
The other four
No,
coming
good
back
call.
as their same character. Yeah, Warwick
He's
Davis
got
makes
two
two
characters in
appearances,
this one.
maybe three. I read about a third one, but I couldn't pick it out.
Yeah, I know he plays like the young Greedo.
Yeah,
And-
who's
Like
actually
some green
just a
thing?
young Rhodian.
Yeah, right. I know.
I did read a thing that in the original script, though, he was supposed to be young Greedo. Like one of the other kids makes a comment and says Greedo to him.
He's always been Greedo to me.
Those four make it back, which are basically all, except for Ian McDiarmid, they're all puppets.
Mm-hmm.
So, and actually, Anthony Daniels, this is the only one where he doesn't actually play C-3PO.
He
He's only
can't 'cause
voicing
he's
him.
naked.
Yeah, because he's naked and you can see through him the whole time. They had like what's it, Kabuki? What's the theater with the
Yeah,
people
Japanese
behind
theater.
the Japanese theater? They did kind of that thing. They had a person in like a suit that was somewhat the same color as the background, controlling the puppet of C-3PO, and then they just
It
erased
looks like
him.
if I was trying to walk in high heels, dude. Like, you got them wobble legs.
He's just learning.
Yeah.
He's a wee bab.
He's a wee bab.
But so they escape to Tatooine, if you can call that an escape.
I mean, they get there.
We see Darth Maul for the first time. It's about a half hour into the movie. First time you see the big villain.
Do you know
The
who
Muffin
was
Man?
supposed to play him?
No.
Benicio del Toro Signed
been
up to play
awesome.
him, even did some stuff. But as his lines kept getting cut, he said no, and they cut the lines even more and had Ray Park, the stuntman, be him. I mean, he's got
And
three.
then the voice is done by Peter Serafinowicz, who did. I'm probably saying that wrong, but he was the Tick in the new The Tick series.
Okay.
He was in the show Spaced. He played Dwayne. He's been in a bunch of stuff, but those are the two nerd things I know him from. Oh, he's the roommate in Shaun of the Dead.
Gotcha. I know exactly
Yes.
who you're talking about.
And
now.
I could hear it now that I knew that. When I was watching the 3 lines that he has in this movie, I was like, yeah, that is his voice.
Yeah, he's Benicio would have been fine, but it would have almost been a waste too.
Yeah. Why pay Benicio money if he's not doing work? I
The
get why he
stuntman already
backed
looks
out.
that good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you got a guy doing the voiceover work for 3 lines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which he recorded more than 3, but they used 3. He got paid nothing for it, basically, which is a George Lucas's MO. And 8.5 minutes of screen time for Darth Maul.
Yep. Ooh, Ray Park did leave a lasting impression on the character. In one scene, he forgot to take his earring out when they did makeup. It's just a big fat stud. And so they left it in, and Darth Maul in canon now has ears pierced because
I love
of
that.
You're welcome for knowing that.
Apparently, and I don't remember the TV commercials for it that well, but apparently Darth Maul had a monologue about fear that was used in the TV spots.
Oh, okay.
But then it was cut out of the movie.
Yeah.
So now I want to go back and find those TV spots on YouTube.
I mean,
if LucasArts lets them out there.
He is kind of the Phantom Menace, which can't be much more than what he is.
Well, but the Phantom Menace is referring to Darth Sidious.
Yes, but I think it.
But we
also,
always thought
yeah,
of him.
Well, because his face is on the fucking poster.
Yeah, it's like Star Wars, the Phantom Menace, and then it's just his face.
I mean, he's a menace. He's not much more.
Yeah.
By the way, as soon as you see Darth Maul for the first time on camera, I don't know about you, I loved it.
I did love it. I'm also a huge fan of Black and Red.
Yeah.
I always liked it, but I did like later on watching it, I thought about it, and I was like, but before they started doing a lot of the newer stuff where you now see that race of people existing outside of
the
Darth
Zabraks?
Maul. Yeah, the horn people.
They're
I remember watching it and
Iridonian
being
or
like,
Zabraks.
is this literally just like a devil dude? Like
Yeah.
I'm like thinking about it later, I'm like, wait, is it a species
the
of
devil
people?
dudes are the Deveronians.
Yeah, I know, but like this he's red and he has horns.
The black is all tattoos.
Oh.
Like on his face, like the red is
I
his
did not know
skin, the
that.
black is all tattoos.
Okay.
Very painful and, adds to his anger and
We've
hatred.
seen one of them in Mandalorian,
One
I
of
think, that
them.
was like flesh colored, right?
There is a flesh-colored one in this. And there's one on the Jedi Council. He will get killed in Episode 3 by Emperor Palpatine. Not Emperor just yet.
Okay.
But yeah.
Senator.
There is... I am blanking on his name, and I probably should know it, but... Yes, there's a really cool fucking history with Zabraks and how they are bred. The females are the ones in charge of their civilization. The
I'm
men
liking
are,
this.
The men are slaves.
Are they the
and-
ones that are from Mustafar?
No.
Okay.
No, they are originally from Iridonia. Then they went to Dathomir.
Dathomir.
So
that's
the Night
that's the
Sisters-
evil planet I was trying to think of.
Okay. Now Mustafar is only evil after Vader puts his castle
I just
there.
knew it was one of those planets that was associated with bad stuff.
So I normally wouldn't tell you anything about the Night Sisters and how they raise their males and yada yada, but it's gonna come up.
Okay.
It's gonna come up in Ahsoka. There's Night Sisters.
Yeah.
The Star Wars video game that I loved, Jedi Survivor, has a Night Sister. Like they're gearing up for something, I think, and it'll be nice to know what the Night Sisters and the Zabraks are all about.
I have a question that some people might want to know.
Go on.
How come the Jedi are only a single saber, but like evil people have cool shit?
This isn't about him being evil. It's no problem with the Jedi having two. They're in the Clone
Ahsoka
Wars.
has 2.
Well, no, she means double bladed, I think.
Yeah.
And in the Clone Wars, there are Jedi with double bladed. It's a simple fact that it wasn't designed until now.
Okay.
And it looked menacing as fuck.
Yes, it did.
And he's able to fight 2 people. The Jedi are more about control and defense. This is why you would see less of them with this. It's very aggressive.
It is.
It's yeah, you can see it though.
But
And-
like, so isn't there a thing where you have like, as you're a Padawan, you have to get a crystal?
Yes, you have to travel to the planet of Ilium,
Okay.
which was later
Or-
turned into Starkiller Base.
Or just find one in a drawer, like in Ahsoka. We'll get there.
But yeah,
So-
so
so
the
his
crystal
is just
finds
like-
you actually. Like you go. Well, now.
Does that mean he has 2 crystals?
Yes, which is why when the blade gets cut in half, he can still use it.
Okay.
I thought he was just lucky and got the half where he's kept the crystal.
Oh, thank God. Red lightsabers are different though.
I know they each have a color. Like
A-
the color means something.
Well, now it does. It didn't before.
Oh, okay.
We'll wait till the original
I think it just came
trilogy.
down to in the original trilogy. I want to say it just came down to red looks evil, so that's why Darth Vader got
It was
red.
always supposed
Okay.
to be red and blue.
Okay.
Episode 6 added green because blue didn't show up on sand. That's it.
Oh.
But then purple came about because Samuel L. Jackson on set asked George for a purple one and
Get
got
that.
it. But so the
Well,
reds
you
are
give
different.
Sam what
though.
he wants.
What
Sam Jax gets
I
what
want mine
he
to be
wants.
motherfucking purple.
On the hilt, though, it did say "bad motherfucker."
Does it?
Fuck yes.
No one will ever see that, but he did. But to the red, though, Darth Maul guarantee was probably tested by sending, like he got sent out by Sidious to go unarmed fight Jedi. When he killed them, he takes their lightsabers and he does what's called bleeding the crystal, which is how you turn it red.
So you just
You put all your hate, and he probably went and slaughtered a bunch of innocent people with it. And as he does that, the crystal gets corrupted and
Okay.
becomes evil. Then you can take that and you can purify it, and that's why Ahsoka has white.
how do you purify it?
You have to do the exact opposite.
You
have
heal
to-
people with it?
Yeah, no, you just kind of put all your good intentions into it, and it becomes a white one.
Okay.
At the end of the day, it was always supposed to be just red and blue, but
I kind of like that they brought in.
I've watched very little of Clone Wars, but Ahsoka's wasn't white in that. So
No.
when she showed up with the white in the show, I was like, okay, something happened here.
Yeah, she actually took down, fucking unarmed. She took down an Inquisitor and just fucking made him. It shows you the Inquisitors are not Sith. They're not well trained. They're fucking just evil.
Are those the
cowards.
ones from Obi-Wan that have the
Spinning
thing that
blade.
spins?
Stupidest fucking
hate that
design
thing.
ever.
That's so
But I think
stupid.
it's supposed to be a thing where that's a tactic of theirs is to.
It looks intimidating
It
because
looks
they don't have
intimidating.
skill.
Yeah, they have no skill. They were never.
Okay.
They were never great Jedi, and they were never really trained in the dark side. Just turned evil.
Okay.
So
So that's
Thank
not
you.
in this movie.
But I know it's not in this movie, but thank you for letting me, because that's my thing. Like, I saw him when this came out. I was like, so why is he cool and he gets 2?
It's the short answer. It looks
well, and it
fucking
started
cool.
the bad trend of having to, like, each time there's a new Jedi that shows up on screen or Sith, we have to add what's their cool lightsaber going to look like.
The
Adam
video
Driver's
games
is the
got
best.
worse, man. There was people in the comics like a lightsaber whip, the Tonfa thing that like a billy club with a lightsaber at the end of it. Some just
Is there a
stupid
Viking one out
designs.
there with a lightsaber axe?
There
There
is.
should
There
be.
absolutely is an execution.
I
You
love
almost see
that.
it in episode 8, kind of, but theirs is
Okay.
not lightsaber. Anyway,
I have a question about this next scene, though. So we meet R2. They introduce R2 to the Queen, who's Keira Knightley right now, because he saved the ship, right? So is when we find out that I like how they say it real slowly as if it's like a reveal, like R2D2. Like he's the only blue one. Every other one is yellow or red.
Green.
But then Keira Knightley is like, we should clean up this droid as a thanks for his service. She sends Padme to do it. Wouldn't the fake queen who's protecting the real queen send one of the actual handmaidens to do the cleaning?
No, I feel I'm gonna give this a shot. I
Go
feel
ahead.
like that's what Padme would do. Is she would want to give it the respect and to meet the droid.
I think you're
Okay.
spot on. I think
Maybe,
you're spot
okay.
on. Keira Knightley isn't
They
even
have a-
ordering around. She's like, I'm gonna go do this. Pretend like you're bossing me around.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because she's like, Padme, go clean this droid. And I was like, really? You got
Yeah.
4 others there. Not
I,
that
think,
aren't
I don't think
actually
anything's
clean.
happening. It's not Padme's choice
Ex-
until
100%.
Qui-Gon Jinn starts bossing her around.
Yeah. You assume
But
too
she's
much.
fucking enormous compared to her. You listen.
Yeah, he's,
So I
he's
just-
8.5 feet tall. You do what he says.
3 feet taller than tall people.
He actually was so tall. So a lot of this stuff was shot on like half sets where then everything was filled in with computer stuff.
Yeah.
He's so tall that he upped the budget by another $150,000 because they had to build all the half sets higher.
Oh man.
Liam Neeson is?
Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
He's like 6'5", 6'4".
I love him even more now.
Yeah, because everything
a big boy.
was only built as high as the top of their heads, and then the rest was filled in digitally.
So that scene where they're like going up the stairs and he says, listen, the queen entrusts me with this. You do as I say.
Yeah.
And she says, but he is just like,
There's a couple scenes you can see him like trying to fit in. Like he
Yeah,
he
he's
bends
bending
really
over.
into it. Cause like I gotta get in fucking scene here.
like, you're out of spot. Get on your mark.
just because we're talking about the Jedi right now, there's a piece of trivia I just saw on here that I feel like I've heard before, but I forgot. Did you know that Ewan McGregor is the nephew of Dennis Lawson, who played Wedge Antilles?
Oh, I think
I don't
did
know
that
anything you just
before.
said,
Wedge
except Ewan
Antilles is one of the better pilots for the Rebellion.
Yeah, Wedge
Okay.
is like Luke Skywalker's buddy pilot. I mean, he's barely in it, but
He is. I think
well,
you're
he
thinking
talks
of,
to him a lot. Because he says he's the one I remember hearing say Wedge.
Yeah, there's Wedge. There's also Darklighter. Biggs, not Porkins.
Porkins is the best one.
Porkins is a big old fat pilot in a really small X-wing cockpit.
His name is Porkins.
And his name is Porkins.
Lucas hates fat people.
Yeah,
Got
we'll get there. 77 hated fat people.
I saw that in my trivia and I was like, oh yeah, he's so nepotism, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think Wedge Antilles has the power to get his nephew into
Doubtful. So now we're going for our third racist stereotype. This kind of
Watto.
This kind of I don't know, Jewish, Italian.
Yeah, the merchant.
Is this the flying thing?
Yeah, the little flying merchant.
Toydarian.
Do you know what it would have made his character better in my eyes?
Tony Shalhoub.
That, yes.
A Jewish guy playing him.
Yeah.
Or who's the guy who he's the nihilist in
Oh, Peter Stormare.
Peter
yes.
Stormare.
I would have liked
Peter
him.
Stormare could be a good Watto.
He would have been a great Toydarian.
That's how that's what I envisioned when I saw the face. I was like, oh, that should be this guy. And then
So-
I was like, that's not that guy.
This species makes an appearance in the Clone Wars, and they don't all talk like this. They did a much better job of this is just like a guy that happens to speak this way and be a shady dealer.
The CG for him looks mostly fine, but his scruffy like beard looks so
It looked
bad.
terrible on
I
the
think
screen.
that's a curse of the 4K.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could
I
tell it
remember
was
it
the
looking
It was
4K
like
on
these fat, heavy lines of like stubble, and I'm like, that's not how stubble works, unless his beard is just a bunch of like tree trunks coming.
Well, I was
out
gonna
of
say
his-
maybe you don't know what Toydarians look like when
That's
they grow
true.
out beards.
That's true. It just looked like a little kid had scribbled his face.
Maybe he's pregnant and that's how he reproduces. Sprouts babies from
I
his
guess you
neck
never
beard.
know, right?
You never know.
Aliens. I
Star
did
Wars
read a thing that
apologists, I can make it all
supposedly
work.
the reason he's always flying, and I guess they
one
aren't
foot
always.
is shorter than
he's,
the other.
He's handicapped. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of his feet is bigger than the other.
I
didn't-
noticed he's got like a thingy on one foot.
Yeah, he's
Like,
got a trick foot.
Yeah.
For sure.
So he's just always got to fly.
He's
But
got a strong foot.
he's got,
Yeah, strong foot.
and he has slaves because Star Wars loves slaves.
Yep.
Anakin and
At least
his
he
mom.
used to.
Yeah.
They changed all that shit now.
Well,
like-
I mean, they do address it here because Padme says, "Oh, you're a slave." Like
thought
it's been
slavery was
abolished in the Republic, but Tatooine is not the Republic.
Yeah.
yeah. And it's going to be coming back.
Yeah. I mean,
It
there's
is-
slaves all the way in Mandalorian, which is
Mm-hmm.
post original trilogy. So
It's the first shot we see really of Anakin. He's like, I'm a person. You know, he's just tired of being this way. It's showing, it's doing a poor job at sowing the seeds of his hatred and his need to have an attachment.
Yeah.
Because right now he only has his mom. He's very attached to her, and he should be. But here comes this lady, just like slave. He's like,
Are
hey, I'm
you
a
an
fucking person.
angel?
Oh God, that's the second worst line in this movie, right behind Yippee.
She makes a super happy face.
apparently it worked into the comic books at some point because
Yeah.
the angels
They dig-
on Iomir or whatever
Uh-huh.
he says end up being a thing that Anakin and I think it's probably Ahsoka
Mm-hmm.
maybe end up getting into a tussle with.
Yeah, you see him.
I thought the whales were the angels of the
The
sky.
Purgils, no.
No, but those are also a thing. I love that part. Laser whales.
Laser whales were dope.
But yeah, are you an angel? And I just feel myself cringe.
Well,
So he's falling in love with her already. I mean, hey, you
I'm
know
gonna-
what? 9-year-olds fall in love with 16-year-olds, man. It happens.
And I'm going to put this to you. This is not canon. Maybe there is a latent forcibility happening right now.
That's what I think.
Of an accidental manipulation. Because she's instantly, of course, she's nice to him. She's a fucking nice person, you know. But there is this need, and it gets more with each movie.
I'm wondering if she has
Midichlorian.
Well, when we get into the
Everybody
second,
does in the new verse.
But you have to have
Everybody
more than
has
10?
it. You have to work on it. It would be the same as
well, he does say in the when he gets the exposition scene later, he says they're in all living beings.
yes. But then Dave Filoni took it a step further, and like everybody can be a Jedi. It's the same. It's akin to like dancing. You
Okay.
might take lessons every day for the next year, and you could be a good dancer.
Or you can
or
be
there's
amazing
somebody
just
out
by
there
yourself.
that's like, oh, like this?
Like the guy on the corner of Pantano and Broadway.
I know who you speak of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of akin to that. Like everybody can dance. Are you a natural or are you a student?
Okay. Zip actually broke that down to me because I was like, you are an amazing artist. And he's like, no, I practice a shit ton.
Drawing's a better analogy than dancing.
He's like, you have to put the work into
Well, it's
it.
like they say, 10,000 hours to become an expert, right?
And he's
So I'm still
phenomenal.
masturbating.
So yeah, we're at Watto's scrapyard shop. Anakin's inside talking to Padme. Qui-Gon and Watto are out walking around looking for a hyperdrive.
Did you notice, like, my notes just say Republic credits are Bitcoin?
Basically, yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
he's like, we need something more tangible than that, man. We don't fucking take
Yeah, he's like, I've got
dietaries.
50,000 credits, and he's like, yeah, no one gives a
You
shit.
got nothing.
I need credits. Don't work on me. Only money. But in the background, and I looked it up to verify it because I saw it, and I was like, that can't be. In the background of the scrapyard, there's one of the EVA pods from 2001: Space Odyssey.
Oh, really?
The little pod with the big window in the front. It has the little arms
I
that
didn't
come
see
out
it.
and do like
Okay.
the neat stuff. There's one of them laying in the background. It's like it's on its back. The window part is up, and the little arms are on there.
Definitely didn't catch it.
And I had to
That's cool
Google
shit.
it. I Googled it, and as soon as I searched like Star Wars EVA pod, it came up, and there's a bunch of pictures highlighting it. And I
I
was
mean,
like,
Earth is canon in Star Wars.
Yeah, I saw that
And-
because ET's in there.
Yeah, because of the ETs in the Senate. Like,
okay, yeah.
it has to be.
I mean, all that means is that the ETs are canon. Maybe that story is a fantasy story from. It does mean that ET is a Jedi, though,
Yeah, for sure.
because we've seen that movie.
Yeah, he heals.
I know that's like a meme, but it's also true.
You heard it here first.
He makes the bicycle fly.
Yeah, that's the Force.
Oh,
His midichlorians are off the chart.
look at that.
So maybe not a Jedi, but force sensitive.
Okay.
Could be evil. We don't know. He's pretty attached to Elliot.
But I do love when he tries.
Sounds like a Sith to me.
When Qui-Gon's trying, he's like, "You will take my credits. They are good enough."
No, I will not take your credit. It's like, yes, they were
And
fine.
Watto's line is like, "Why are you waving your hand around like that? What do you think you are, some kind of Jedi?" Fucking stupid.
And on the Outer Rim, like, Jedi's not a big known thing. It's more folklore.
Yeah.
Just the way that they've had it work in the story.
Right.
You wouldn't just see somebody, which is why Obi-Wan can get away with it in the original trilogy, dressed like that. No one's like, huh, look at that Jedi. They wouldn't know.
He
They'd
just
be
looks like
that's
a
a
sand people?
hermit. Like, yeah. Oh, we don't. Tusken Raiders.
Tusken
please.
Raider, sorry.
Sand people.
Yeah,
Damn.
that's outdated.
Did your wife just
terminology.
use the S word?
I was actually surprised in this movie that they said Tusken Raider because I was like, well, it's only 1999. Did they go back and fix themselves yet?
So when we walk into the slave quarters, I don't know if I caught this years ago, but I watched it for sure, like looking for it. There's a little Maz Kanata statue.
What's a
I don't know.
Maz
I don't know.
Maz Kanata is the character in episode 7 with the big goggles. She's like, "Where's that Wookiee? I really like that Wookiee."
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't catch that. I
It's
did.
it's a little figure. I mean, I almost don't think it was done on purpose. When you watch Maz Kanata and then you go back and watch this, it's an uncanny. I'll see if I can find a picture for you.
Okay.
I did notice too in Watto's shop. There's a full, and I know protocol droids are a thing. At this point we've already seen another C-3PO lookalike, the silver one
Yes.
at the beginning. But in Watto's shop, hanging in the background is C-3PO, like the copper and everything. And then when we go to the slave quarters to their house, he's building him. So I'm like, so did he just
Steal those
build
parts?
your own and then steal the plating off of that one? Why didn't you just fix that one?
I mean, we see it a couple of times. I think that's just a common plating. Like he's building from scratch a frame for a car that already has a body that exists.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
he's building the chassis, the motor, and all he's gonna do is go steal a '57 Ford Shell and throw that on.
'Cause I
Okay.
remember that he built 3PO because I remember thinking that was kind of stupid.
Trying to show that there's a lot of them around.
So 3PO is known R2 3PO's whole life then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because this is like the first time that he's even woken
That's
up.
the first
right?
person he introduces
I
himself
am
to.
C-3PO.
Well, first person, first
First.
First droid.
other being he introduced himself to.
So do you want to know my theory? And I think there's evidence to back this up. I don't think I'm making it up. Why R2-D2 is so snippy and snarky?
Huh.
He's never had his memory wiped. There's C-3PO's had his memory wiped at the end of a couple different ones.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's something that's been, I don't think I'm making it up, but they wipe their memories to like reboot them so they don't keep gaining personality and getting snarky. And that's why R2's like, fuck you, I'm going to do what I want. Bitch, I fucking saved him from a trash compactor.
They say his memory was wiped, but it doesn't mean it was. I mean, he can't speak, so maybe they don't think about him as much, right?
Yeah.
Some people can understand him.
Yeah, they're like, who would listen to those beeps and blips?
Yeah, because that's the whole thing in New Hope, right? He's like, oh, because I have to go to our old master, and he's like, you don't have an old master. Like, I guess R2 does remember at that point.
Yeah, I think he remembers the whole thing.
And then they just keep turning him off in the later movies. Like, oh shit, R2, shut up.
Oh, he did that himself. That's an allegory for depression. Master Luke went, so he went dark. Like, yeah, that'll happen.
He started listening to a lot of The Cure. He's smoking cloves.
Oh, God.
Got really into my typo negative phase.
So Jar Jar starts a fight with Sebulba, who we now meet, who is another... I feel like George Lucas just went overboard in trying to design aliens.
Disagree on this design. This particularly nasty Doug,
Yeah.
I like it. He walks on his long arms and he uses his little tiny legs, which are very articulated, and he's able to grab stuff. And
except for when he's getting into his ship, then he stands up on his feet and he's like puts his arms up in the air and he's
he
like,
can do both.
I
guess he's like a
This
gorilla,
is one
right?
I really hated last night.
You hated it?
I did not.
You hated
like
it too?
I'm not a fan of the
was just
design.
like,
I don't
ugh.
hate it, but Sebulba just bothers me.
Oh, I like it, and I like his voice, man.
I was like, are we racist still?
We do get. And it's not quite yet. It's right before the race. I'll talk about that. I wrote down Anakin's delivery of Huttese because it made me laugh.
Well, he does do it right here. He's because he's talking to Sebulba, who's about
Yeah.
to beat up Jar Jar.
But I didn't write down this one. So I don't
Gotcha,
remember.
but it's a bad one.
And it just sounds like a kid going,
It is.
There is
it's exactly that.
By the way, Sebulba, the table he's sitting at when they walk away after the conversation, there's a sad clown sitting with him. There's like a guy sitting there with like black circles around his eyes, like it's if it's face paint, but it
Is
looks
that
like sad
Pavlovich
clown
or
face
something?
paint. And he's like just sitting there because Sebulba doesn't exist, so
Yeah.
this guy has nothing to react to, and like the actor. So he's just sitting at this table, like just completely still, just staring off into nothingness. But you're paying attention to Sebulba, so you don't really notice. But it looks like just a sad clown sitting at this table.
I'm actually nerding out on the character to the right. It's a throwaway, nothing character with dreadlocks and a yellow stripe across his nose and cheeks, and it ends up being Quinlan Voss, a character you would not know unless you read the comics or watched like one episode of Clone Wars or watch his book where he fell in love with Asajj Ventress. Not watched. Read.
I'd watch a book.
It's a character that Dave Filoni took from this little tiny 1 second scene and was like, I'm going to make that a character. And it's not the only time he's done it. I got another one coming up.
Okay.
Just you wait.
Well, there's a lot
So
of
do
people.
I need to watch this again so I can look at this scene?
No.
Or can I just go to the scene?
No, you
Yeah,
could
we can
you
go to
could
the scene.
literally Google the scene.
Okay,
and it'll
good.
show you a picture of
But there's a lot of times
Quinlan
that's been
Voss.
done, not just Dave Filoni, but like if you look in like the 90s, there was like the Star Wars Essential Guide to Characters. That's just written by like a couple of dudes who were going through like that guy. All
Yeah.
right, now what's that guy's story? Because George Lucas, when it came to the extended universe, you had to like submit stories to him to get permission or whatever. From what I understand, he pretty much just okayed everything as long as because he got paid.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're like, I have this story, I have this character, I have this comic, I have this thing. Can I put the Star Wars name on it? And he's like, sure, I'll take 40% or
And
whatever.
the toy
Like,
line named a lot of people, and then which gave him backstories. It's not an effect. It's an iceberg scale. George Lucas created the top of the iceberg, and he did such a good job that you wonder what's below the water, which
Okay.
is a much larger, much bigger universe.
And he wanted people to create extra stuff that would be official
Mm-hmm.
because his agreement with the original movie, as his agreement with this movie, he didn't get paid to make this movie.
yeah.
His agreement with the original, as it was with this, was forego salary as a director, but he owns the entire negative final cut, which is why he gets to keep remaking the goddamn movie. And he gets all of the ancillary rights. So
I
he
don't know
got
what
the rights.
ancillary means.
He got the rights to all the toys, comic books,
Oh.
Video
everything,
games.
everything that came out. So that's part of the reason that Star Wars was the first heavily franchised or heavily merchandised thing
Because he wanted money.
it got big, and George Lucas was like, "I'm about to get paid."
Yeah.
So some toy company's like, "I don't know, can we call that guy such and such
Kenner.
Weef Bellington?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, whatever. Call him that. Put the toy out.
Why
I'll
you
take
have
my
a
cut."
character whose name in the original trilogy is Snaggletooth because somebody looked at the toy and was like Snaggletooth. There's Ponda Baba. And then one of my favorites, Dr. Cornelius, which is the pig face guy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like you. Or, I don't
friend
like you
doesn't like
either.
you either,
Like,
yeah.
that's Dr. Cornelius because somebody wrote that.
I
Not
love
because
that.
George Lucas named
and
him.
he has a whole backstory too. He's not like a mad scientist. It's something else.
He's wanted a whole bunch of systems for the death sentence.
I love it.
I want it on 12 systems
It's-
or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think it's 12.
Is it 12? I don't know.
It's a lot of systems he's wanted on. But yeah, that's the iceberg thing where George Lucas shows you what's above the water and we wonder what's under.
Okay.
And it's something he's always been good at is creating the top of the iceberg, which is why people flock to go make their fan stuff and hopefully get published.
So we're at the pod race
My
now,
note
right?
here, almost. My note. This is where so
the first one,
they're
we're gonna
trying to
go
go
long.
back. They're trying to go back to the ship, and the sandstorm is coming, right?
Uh-huh.
And my note here is that Anakin pulls a "Baby, it's cold outside."
Yes, he does.
Because he's like, "Oh no, you guys won't make it back to your ship in time. Sandstorms are bad. Come stay with me. Come in my house."
This old lady who, I know it's not, but I thought of the pigeon lady from Home Alone 2. She's out there with her little cart. She's going to get blown away if it's that bad.
right?
She's gone.
She's like, better make it
don't
home,
know.
Manny.
I love the set. Like, this is why I can always watch this movie. It's a Star Wars movie. It's this Adobe type building with new age doors and computer buttons. I love that
And it's like an
shit.
apartment building.
Yeah.
It's like an Adobe apartment
I
building.
mean, I know it's slavery's bad and everything, but this is some of the better looking slave quarters we've seen.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
And they have fresh fruit in the table. Like, I don't see anybody get whipped.
you
It's
get a
still,
tongue grab.
It's still slavery if you go for it.
You
Like, it's still
fucking-
Oh,
slavery.
when we were watching that, when Jar Jar kept trying to eat off of fucking Qui-Gon's plate and he grabbed his tongue, I was like, "Look, it's Jack."
I wouldn't have waited for the second one, man. I would have got you right
Also,
away.
you're not even like, I don't want you grabbing food off my plate. I get that. Don't grab your food off my plate with my tongue.
Worst case
with
scenario.
your tongue.
This
Sorry.
is the worst case scenario for
yeah,
me.
you just lick food off my
You
plate.
didn't ask for my food. You reached in with your tongue.
and it's not.
Anyone
it's
that
not
knows
his
me-
plate. It's the fruit bowl
It's the communal.
that's
Oh, is
sitting
it?
over
Okay.
here. Like,
Anyone that knows me knows I'm going to stand up and throw all the food in the trash and throw a huge fit about it.
yeah, I've seen it happen, guys.
Don't touch my food.
Qui-Gon, right when he does grab, right before he grabs Jar Jar's tongue, he mentions, because they're talking about pod racing, and Anakin's like, "I'm the only human who can do it." And he's like, "Oh, you must have Jedi reflexes." And then also grabs, showing that he's a Jedi. And that's when Anakin's like, "You're a Jedi, right? I saw your laser sword."
Yeah.
Which throwback to what was initially, kind of toyed with being called
Was it?
laser
Okay.
sword. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, "Maybe I stole it from a Jedi.
No, I don't think so. Nobody can kill a Jedi.
If only that were true." Turns out you're about to kill them all.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well,
Actually,
first,
I guess he's mostly killing babies. They're not Jedis yet.
well, but he did go hunting Jedi. We don't
Yeah.
see that. I always wanted that show, but it's hard to have your main star be Darth Vader, who's a very evil guy at this point. But we never really got to see Vader hunting down, and that would be cool as shit.
I saw a meme that was like, and I guess it might be based on something he said, but it's like, it was a picture of Anakin, later Anakin, saying like, "Well, I want my character to get a spinoff show," and someone was like, "The whole series is your spinoff show."
Yeah.
But I'm thinking that, I'm like, yeah, you know what? We can still get Anakin to do it. He acted in some of the new stuff and wasn't as bad as I remember, but he also didn't have George Lucas directing
I
him.
love the Hayden Christensen glow up. I'm gonna call it. I think he's great now.
But like, if we saw him hunting, it would be in his Darth Vader costume, so we wouldn't know that he looks 84 years older than he did in those movies. Because that's the big problem for me with his reappearances, like in Obi-Wan. It's like, it's supposed to have been like 10 years. I'm like, yo, it looks like it's been...
It looks like it's been exactly the amount of time it's passed.
It looks like it's been 30 years.
Yeah.
Not
Oh my
8,
God.
You know?
But I like him in Ahsoka a lot. I think that he didn't do well in 2
I guess
and 3.
23 years.
Like, he did not do a good job acting in 2 and 3.
No.
But what he does do very well is dueling.
I
He's
put a
very
lot
good
of the
with
blame
lightsaber.
off for that. Same thing in this movie. I think a lot of the acting here is not great. A lot of the
Yeah.
deliveries are not great, even though some of the characters and the people are. And I think it just comes down to George Lucas not knowing how to direct humans.
So to speak on that, though, too, if it's tough for somebody like Liam Neeson to act on a green screen, it's going to be even tougher for somebody that's never acted, like Hayden Christensen. I'm sure he's acted. Like Liam Neeson is a seasoned vet. And he's
Hayden Christensen was in an episode of Goosebumps.
Oh, God. Throw that knowledge out. Take that right out of my brain.
Yeah, you can have it. So yeah, they talk. Anakin says he can fix anything. He's building a pod racer. Him and his mother, whose name is Shmi, like Bob Hoskins from Hook.
Shmi is me.
But we don't get that in this movie. But they have this argument about him racing and about how she's so worried about it. And I mean, the two of them emote as much as, like, if it was, it's almost as if those Fandango paper bag puppets were talking to each other.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, there's nothing to it. And again, that comes down to the direction, I think.
George Lucas directing. I mean, he's like, that's better than I could do.
Yeah. Because when I've heard stories, even going back to the first one, of like them giving performances and being like, "What was that good, George?" And he's busy thinking about something else. And he's like, "Yeah, it was fine." Like, he doesn't care about the deliveries, so.
He shouldn't direct. I mean, that's it. He should stick to it. Well, he's doing nothing but counting his money now.
Yeah. Counting his, $4.5 billion or whatever he sold it for.
That's just what he sold it for. That's not all the money he made on toys and shit before, too.
Yeah.
Damn.
So they make a bet. They decide to let Anakin race, and Qui-Gon Jinn makes a bet with Watto. If we win, I'll get my parts. You can have the money. Yeah. I get the parts for my ship. If we lose, you can have the ship. That's the first bet.
It's win-win for Watto.
Yeah. Because he says there's something about this boy.
He won the Wattery.
Then we get the virgin birth horse shit, because he's like, who was his father? There was no father. I'm like, listen, lady, you fucked someone.
Yeah. Yeah, we know.
She's a Swedish actress, and she's trying to hide it, but she's not hiding it.
Why even hide it? You're on Tatooine.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what your fucking accent
It's an international planet.
Yeah.
But she's trying to, and she has this really, really weird, like, she's not, doesn't sound super Swedish, but it sounds like, I don't know, kind of sounds like Liam Neeson trying to do American when he does that. Like, it's just like, there was no father.
Western.
Like, very flat. Like, whenever Europeans are trying to do an American thing and they're not great at it, it's that very weird, flat, like, there was no father. I don't know who it was.
Yeah, you know it's not right. You just don't know why. So this is the scene we talked about, where it's kind of funny to think about now with Luke and Leia being so strong in the Force. Your grandfather is the Force.
Yeah.
Like, I know who my dad is. Well, who's your grandpa? The Force. The living fucking Force. Who's your fucking grandpa? Porkins?
Yeah, my maternal last name is the Force. Sorry, LaForce.
LaForce, it's French.
Oh man, I just thought of that. So in Mallrats, the security guard played by Sven-Ole Thorsen is LaForce, and Kevin Smith is a big Star Wars nerd. Do you think he was doing the Force?
Yeah, the LaForce is with you.
So they're trying to fix the pod racer, and it's Jar Jar doing some, like, it's supposed to be funny stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing that did make me laugh about it was 3PO telling R2, I find that Jar Jar character a bit odd. And R2 says something, and every time I hear it, I just hear, yeah, dude, fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck that Gungan. So this is just a stupid little fan theory thing, but you see the young girl that's with Kitster and Greedo and Annie. There's a good chance that is a young Palimoto, who is the mechanic in Mandalorian and Boba Fett.
Oh.
Played by Amy Sedaris.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I always say Strangers with Candy because I can never remember her name.
So she's on Tatooine, and she says, I'm a homegirl. I've never left this planet. And she's really good at wrenching on stuff.
Yeah.
She's Darth Vader's best fucking friend.
No, just Anakin's best friend.
Same.
Not really.
Not really at all. George Lucas wrote them as separate characters.
Yeah.
Like, he had to.
Because they were.
Mm-hmm. And initially, they actually were.
I mean, yeah, Darth Vader killed your father.
Yeah.
It wasn't a metaphor.
When he says that, and he's like, well, from a certain point of view, like, no, it's George Lucas wrote it as Darth Vader was just a mostly machine kind of bad guy that killed Anakin Skywalker, the person, like a different whole separate.
Oh, like separate entity.
Yeah, separate bodies and everything.
Okay.
But, he salvaged it pretty fucking well.
Yeah.
And came up with one of the best reveals in cinema.
Yeah. Part of the reason that becomes my number one movie every time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, and we'll get there. So Qui-Gon.
Owen Lars?
I was about to go off on a whole thing about people getting their hands chopped off.
This
but
one.
Yeah.
That's a
Stay on
different
this
movie.
one.
Yeah, we got to save it.
No one gets their hand chopped off in this movie, I don't think.
No.
Well, it depends. Darth Maul gets both his hands chopped off connected to his legs.
I mean, his entire top half is
I
chopped
did,
off.
it would look like one piece still when he was falling
No,
down.
he falls and he splits into two.
Yeah, you see it.
Does he?
Oh,
Oh.
yeah.
Which there's a whole thing about that when we get there. That
Yeah,
makes
that's
it
where
really
my
funny to
question
me,
is
but-
at. The fucking doors.
The ratio.
So Qui-Gon steals some of Anakin's blood like a weirdo without asking.
And here's our exposition scene.
Yeah, and then like, what are midi-chlorians? Like literally, it's like he sits down and he goes, "What is exposition, Qui-Gon?"
So, hey, tell the audience what they need to know right now. So, midichlorians are dumb as shit. Everyone can agree on that.
Yes.
The reason they were added in is simply for what we're about to get when he sends the sample and he's like,
Off the
oh,
chart.
he's got this many as opposed to Yoda has this. It's just to show Anakin has big dick force energy.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's an easy way to measure it. It's an easy way to go. I don't just have a feeling that this kid is force sensitive and could be a Jedi. I have literal physical numbers.
So
prove it.
it's also, am I to understand that it's actually like another being? Like
Yeah.
you have multiple, you have 20,000 beings inside of you.
Yeah.
So you need to listen to them.
It's like Dragon Ball Z when they're like fighting and the ones are always like, he's over 9,000.
But to
It's the
Whitney's
same
point, though,
thing.
it is like, I think it's a tiny like amoeba type thing.
Well, he says
very
they're
close
like-
to bacteria.
Okay.
Good bacteria in your body, like your gut health kind of
you
bacteria.
got great gut health.
You know, this guy has
they're
he can
probiotic.
eat wings covered in chili sauce. He could drink tomato juice. This guy has no
you
fucking
jealous?
problem. You jealous?
Jealous?
So, like all Star Wars fans, I hated the midichlorian. But at the end of the day, I didn't write this fucking story. The guy that wrote it entered this into his canon.
Okay.
And you can't go back from it. Deal with
Yeah.
it. Is what I'm getting.
Deal
Yeah.
with it.
It sucks. It's dumb, but it's there. Deal with it.
Yeah, I can complain about it all.
You
I
get
want.
what you get and you don't throw a fit.
Absolutely.
it's the
well,
same
if you're a
thing-
Star Wars fan, you throw a fit.
Oh, they definitely throw a fit. It's the same thing I was saying when the new ones were coming out. I think there was a joke when after number 8 came out. There was a joke if someone had released like a poster and it was like Star Wars Episode 9, choose your own adventure. And at the bottom, it was like guaranteed, no ruined childhoods, like all this stuff. Like, because
Yeah.
people got way too upset about it. Like, I thought this was stupid and I disliked these movies for a very long time. But I never was like, well, I hate Star Wars now.
It took me a while, but I had to adapt to it. Where it's like it's not my Star Wars. You're right. It's not like it's George Lucas's Star Wars, and you can get on board, which is what you have to do.
You know, if you wanted it to be your Star Wars, you should have written books back when he was okaying everybody.
Yep.
Now you got Disney in control.
But if you can't get on board, stick with the original trilogy and just stop being a true fan, like a big fan.
Yeah.
You know, stick with the 3 you like because
Yeah.
it's here and it's not going anywhere.
We're here. We're queer. Deal with it.
We're here. We're midichlorian, and nothing rhymes with that. Drive a DeLorean. I should have fucking thought of that.
Okay. We're here.
We're here. we're
Midi-chlorian,
midichlorian,
more
and we're
like
getting in this
Midiborian.
DeLorean. No, I will not lightsaber you. I would though.
So then they end up having another bet where Qui-Gon is wagering Anakin's freedom against the pod.
Yeah.
If they win, he gets Anakin.
He
if
wants
they lose,
both.
He
He
gets
wants
the pod.
both slaves at first.
Yeah, he wants Mom and Anakin, but Watto says no pod is worth 2 slaves.
Not by a long shot.
Yeah. So Qui-Gon very quickly is like, well, that's fine. We don't need that lady. I just want the kid.
I happen to have a chance cube.
You sound just like him.
Yes, the chance cube, which apparently, according to the script,
It's loaded.
Is loaded, and
You
that's
can
why
see it
he's
in his
so
face.
mad.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
supposed to. It's not supposed to land on that. I think it lands on red, and it was supposed to be blue.
I think it's the other way, but either way, yeah.
Yeah, and you can see it in his face that it's supposed to be like, what the fuck? I'm supposed to get rid of Shmi.
Yeah, and it's funny because Watto, who already made a comment about, like, what are you, some kind of Jedi?
Yeah.
It doesn't realize, like, oh, he Jedi'd that shit.
Yeah, he did. He tried to Jedi mind trick you. Why wouldn't you instantly be like, okay, now I know what you're doing with the dice.
Hey, you did that. I see it. I see your hand.
You
do
wave
that.
your hand around, you do a little flickety flick. Stop it. I'm trying to play unfair.
And then we get the lingo that never caught on. What's this kid's name? Kitster?
And oh
Comes
my God,
in
it
with,
does catch on.
This is so Wizard, Annie.
You know when that comes back?
I know that Ahsoka says Wizard in the
Mando
cartoon.
says it when he takes the M1 starfighter that
Oh,
Pally built for him.
that's right.
He takes it through Beggar's Canyon where this pod racer is. Like it all ties in. He goes through Beggar's Canyon and she goes, "How is it?" And he goes, "Wizard."
Yeah.
Dope. We're bringing it back.
I guess his delivery makes it cooler because Pedro
Yeah.
Pascal makes everything cool.
Yes, he does.
If this little shit kid called Kitster says wizard, I'm like, shut the fuck up.
You're right, though. It didn't catch on. Like, George wanted us to be saying this. Like,
Yeah, he wanted that. He was trying to make fetch happen,
Uh-huh.
and it wasn't going to happen.
Not playing it.
I made a Mean Girls joke for you.
You can't gloss over on Mean Girls.
But then he also reveals that Anakin reveals he's never finished a race.
Yep.
Watching this race, I'm like, most people who don't finish these races die. So you're
Yeah.
very lucky because I'm pretty sure this race
Only
starts
one
with like
person ever
8
finishes.
racers. And I think 3 of them are alive.
Yeah, there's a lot of explosions. Unless your alien race is like fire resistant, like a Deveronian, then you're probably dead.
Yeah, because I mean, like when Sebulba gets taken out, his thing lands perfectly. But most of these guys are crashing into walls and shit. Like,
Poodoo.
But so we get the racer intros. Oh, I meant to play for you guys before we watched it, but it's fine. It's not a shot-for-shot remake of Ben-Hur. We had mentioned that on another episode of our other show, Bad Movies, Worst People. Go check that out. But it has a lot of similarities. Like when the one pod gets taken out and like the engine's tumbling around and the guy goes flying and like you see the engine like hit the ground and spin.
Yeah.
That exact shot happens when the thing is taken out and then the wheel comes off the cart and it spins.
Gotcha.
With the end of the pod race when they're like hooked together and like
That's
trying to-
chariots.
that's the one where the chariot has the spikes and he takes all those spokes out of the other person's wheel and takes out the chariot. But it's not like shot for shot. But this whole
No.
thing with like the flags coming out and the big shot of all the racers and everything, this is exactly like the beginning.
Did Chariots of Fire have is that what you said? Chariots of
It
Fire?
was Ben-Hur was what I was looking at.
Did Ben-Hur have a two-headed announcer played by Greg Proops?
No, it did not have
That
a
was
two-headed
Greg Proops?
announcer. He also
Yeah.
didn't know he was going to be
Am I saying it
CG'd.
wrong?
That was Proops.
Proops?
I thought it
I
was-
think it's Proops because
Propes.
it's got 2 O's like poops.
Yeah, that's exactly where my brain went. Always goes
Well,
to
when he
Proops.
was on
Whose line is it anyway?
Yeah, it was Propes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Greg Probst, we'll call him that because
But I read a thing that apparently he had like makeup on, him and this other guy had like makeup on, and they were doing everything in English. And then he saw the movie and he's like, that's when I found out they replaced me with a CG character. And also the other guy redid every line in Huttese.
it's kind of annoying. It's fine. It's not as bad as Jar Jar. I just don't really need it.
Yeah. It's also not as bad as, speaking of Jar Jar, the farting anteater camel for no reason.
Eope.
What?
That animal is an Eope.
Oh, okay.
Ewan McGregor
You know what I'm
rides
talking about.
Nope.
'Cause you even pointed out because the subtitle says flatulence.
Oh,
It's that,
that
it's
weird,
a,
like,
it's a
anteater camel.
Yeah, like a.
okay.
It like farts in Jar Jar's face. And he's like, oh, sticky.
I mean, if you got the opportunity to fart in that dude's face, you fucking take
Well,
it.
yeah, but like like most of Jar Jar's scenes, it has nothing to do with the movie. It's just
It
like
really doesn't.
it's a fart joke for kids.
In a movie that is a fart joke.
All right, that's where we're going to take a break for this week. But tune in next time to get the rest of this episode from the pod race on. We get a lot more focused on the action of the movie and a little less about the history. So join us for that. Let us know what you think of the episodes at hantookShotsFirst@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at hantookShotsFirstPod, or you can find us at hantookShotsFirstPod.com. And don't forget, we have another show called Bad Movies, Worst People, where we recap terrible movies, sometimes good movies. We get drunk and we make fun of them, but you can also join our Patreon there for only $3, and you can get access to Han Took Shots First early. So check that out at patreon.com/worstpeople.